The school bully, right in front of the whole class, slapped his class belle girlfriend's butt. Not only did I not fight back, I turned and walked away instead. Yet my girlfriend ran over and called me a coward. Facing the accusations, I just smiled indifferently. Green tea, bitch. You think this is still the past life? In my past life, I recklessly rushed up and beat the school bully to a pulp, only for him to go around telling everyone I was a simp. She even teamed up with the school bully right in front of the teacher to viciously file a complaint against us, getting me not only a disciplinary mark, but also causing me to miss the turning point of the college entrance exam. The most ridiculous thing was that after graduating high school, she actually ended up with the school bully and even got married. And now since I've been reborn, how could I possibly ruin my own reputation and future for someone like you again? Right now in the teacher's office listening to the two of them make their case. I actually found it hilarious. In my past life, I tried so hard to argue back, but in the end, it all failed. At first, I didn't quite understand why the teacher wouldn't believe me, but later on, I realized that from the very beginning, this so-called interrogation was just a formality. Zhao Tianlei is the dean's son, and the head teacher definitely knew about it. So no matter how much I explained, it was useless. The other party wouldn't get disciplined anyway. Plus Chen Siru wasn't standing on my side at all. I understand. Both of you can go back first. Sure enough, the head teacher Song Wenbo, after getting Chen Siru's response, immediately nodded and said, Lin Yufei, what can I say about you? Your grades aren't even bad. How could you drop the ball at such a critical moment like the senior year? Even if you like Chen Siru, you can wait until after graduation to chase her. Hitting people directly like this is wrong. Do you know that? The disciplinary action for this has already been finalized. You will write a 1 to 500 word self-reflection and then receive a disciplinary notice announced school-wide. There are only a little over 100 days left until the college entrance exam. How can you ruin your own life over something like this? And as for me, I expressionlessly replied, I refuse. Hearing this, the head teacher Song Wenbo instantly blew his top. He widened his eyes and said, What did you say, refuse? Do you know how big of a mistake you've made? Fighting is wrong to begin with. And at this critical moment of the college entrance exam, the other family hasn't pursued your responsibility, which is already considered a mercy. And let me tell you, regardless of whether you write the reflection or not, you're getting disciplined anyway. If you're not willing to admit your mistake, then I'll just have to summon your parents. At this moment, I just smiled. Then the head teacher, right on his computer, opened the student parent information records, found my mother's phone number, and dialed it directly. To be honest, I really don't care. Compared to the grievances I endured in my past life, where even the college entrance exam was completely botched, that would be the real betrayal to my parents. Right now, nothing can block my footsteps anymore. Anyway, no matter what you say, it is impossible for me to write a self-reflection for a mistake I didn't make. I'll say it again, I did nothing wrong. As for what the truth actually is, teacher, you know it better than anyone else. Do whatever you want with the discipline, I couldn't care less. With that, I turned around and walked straight out of the office. Are you kidding me? Me, a dignified reborn person afraid of this. Now that I've been reborn back to senior year, I will never bow my head and admit fault again. Besides, back then when I bombed the college entrance exam and failed to get in, I suffered a massive blow. Right now, those exam questions are still vividly engraved in my mind. I swear, all those glories that rightfully belong to me, I'm taking them all back. When I returned to the classroom, the whole class was buzzing. How did it go? How did it go? A few close classmates gathered around and eagerly asked about the situation. And as for me, I scoffed, how else could it go? They're making me write a self-reflection and apology, and then slap me with a public criticism notice across the school, of course. However, I told the teacher straight up, there's no way in hell I'm writing it. After finishing, I sat back down, took out my books, and prepared to review and reinforce my knowledge. The guy next to me, Sun Fei, gave me a thumbs up and said, badass. You said you wouldn't write the reflection, so what did the teacher say? I said with a nonchalant tone, he's calling my parents. However, when Chen Siru heard this, she grew anxious instead. She immediately walked over, grabbed me, and pulled me out into the hallway. Chen Siru worriedly tried to persuade me, how could you reject the teacher's request? If you don't write the self-reflection and things get blown out of proportion, what are we going to do? I know I lied and you must be angry, I'm sorry, okay? I didn't want him to either, but just think about it. If both of us get punished, isn't it better if just you take the fall instead? You want me to get punished too, just so you can be happy? Chen Siru put on a pitiful and pleading look, hoping to persuade me to shoulder the whole thing. In my past life, because of her persuasion, I ended up taking the blame all by myself and became a complete and utter simp. But this time, How could I possibly make the exact same mistake again? What if I still refuse? Besides, didn't you say you don't like Zhao Tianlei? Why are you still helping him? Chensiru anxiously explained, I'm not helping him. I just don't want things to get too complicated. If you don't want to write the reflection, I can write it for you. Just admit your mistake to the teacher. And won't this whole thing blow over? Do you really have to drag everyone's parents into this? Chensiru couldn't help but grab my arm, her eyes brimming with pleading. She acted all pitiful and whimpered, I'm begging you. I really don't want my parents to find out. If you help me out, I can promise you. I scoffed with a knowing smile. Promise me what? Chensiru bit her lip and muttered, Don't you like me? I can give you a chance to chase me. I instantly laughed. Sorry. You'd better save that chance for someone else. With that, I turned around and went back into the classroom. In my past life, I was blind. Am I supposed to keep being blind in this life too? Besides, if I'm gonna chase anyone, I'll chase a real white moonlight. Who would ever choose a green tea lotus like you? Suddenly, a light flashed in my eyes. At this time, that girl should still be getting bullied at the neighboring school, right? Not long after, the head teacher called me to the office again. Right now, I saw Mom looking at me with somewhat complicated feelings. Clearly, she never expected that her own child would actually get into a fight over puppy love. After all, for such a long time, I had always been the well-behaved and obedient kid, whose academic grades were consistently top tier. I've already told your mother about your situation. You can explain it clearly to her yourself. Mom, Hyakin sighed, pulled her child over to the corner of the office and started asking questions. Mom, it's like this. I leaned right close to Mom's ear and whispered my explanation. In the end, I even took out my phone and opened the text message Chen Siru had sent me. Mom was furious upon seeing it. So after all this time, her son had been completely wronged. Mom Hyakin angrily said, Oh, how could this girl lie like this? Mom immediately took the phone and handed it right in front of the head teacher, Song Wenbo, refuting him. As for this matter, my son really didn't lie, and he didn't just rush over after seeing it on Moments either. It was this female student who claimed herself that she was being harassed, and my son only went over because he couldn't stand watching it. The head teacher, Song Wenbo, also widened his eyes, not expecting there to be chat logs like this. However, he immediately gritted his teeth and said, This lying part is indeed wrong, but Lin Yifei hitting someone is a hard fact. Besides, the guy he hit is a sports major. If his hands or feet got injured, wouldn't his exams be ruined? Right after that, the head teacher Song Wenbo started lecturing me all over again. Lin Yifei, the teacher is just asking you to reflect on your mistake of hitting someone. No matter what, you shouldn't hit people, right? Chensiru lying. The teacher will definitely discipline her too. Leaving all that aside, you were still wrong, weren't you? I chuckled and replied, ha ha ha. Leaving all that aside. That's legendary. Who would have thought a teacher could even say something like that? Teacher leaving the entire state of the world aside. Is there any chance I might actually be Qin Shi Huang? A mistake is a mistake to begin with. So why the hell are they only punishing me alone? Why not just punish all three of us together and put out a joint notice? I honestly don't care. The head teacher Song Wenbo was furious. Look at this kid. After making a mistake, he doesn't have an ounce of remorse. And he even dares to talk back to me. In my opinion, a 1,500-word self-reflection isn't enough. You're writing at least a 3,000-word reflection, plus a school-wide disciplinary criticism notice. You don't have the slightest intention of repenting. And I retorted, oh, please, teacher. Zhao Tianlei definitely won't get a public notice or discipline, eh? Am I right? Are you even qualified to be a teacher? Hearing this, the head teacher stood straight up and yelled angrily, Lin Yifei, you even dare to curse out your teacher now, huh? Seeing this, the head teacher Song Wenbo criticized the student's family member standing next to us. You saw it too. What kind of attitude does this kid have right now? I'm not dealing with this anymore. We're going straight to the disciplinary office. Going to the disciplinary office? What's the point? Do you think I don't know that Zhao Tianlei is the disciplinary director's son? Would he ever let his own son take the loss? As soon as those words dropped, the whole room exploded. Half an hour later, in the disciplinary director's office, Director Liu Qiao wore a stern face and criticized us. Everything you guys said in the teacher's office just now, I'm fully aware of it. You're Lin Yifei's parent, right? Let's not talk about who's right and who's wrong for a second. We need to talk about his attitude. On top of that, he even talked back to the teacher, giving his homeroom teacher chest pains from sheer anger. Is this any way to act? And what was that about? Would I let my own son take the loss? If my son makes a mistake, I'll criticize him just the same, scold him just the same, and beat him just the same, I'll go back and beat the little brat right now. But let me make one thing clear. Lin Yifei must give an apology to the teacher and publicly recite a 3,000-word reflection in front of the whole school. His behavior is already way too atrocious. If he cannot recognize his mistake and turn over a new leaf, then our school simply cannot teach him anymore. Hearing that very last sentence, Mama Yakin instantly grew anxious. Director, what do you mean by that? Are you trying to expel my son? He's already in his senior year. Director Liu Chang sat there and criticized us without a trace of good temper. Look at him. He doesn't even hold the teacher in any regard. He even said the teacher isn't qualified. How do you expect us to teach a student like this? It's not that we don't want to teach him. We're genuinely powerless here. Mom Yakin explained it so. I know the child has a bit of a stubborn temper, but before she could finish, I suddenly blurted out, Mom, it's no big deal. If worse comes to worse, I'll just transfer schools. I'm sick of staying at number 1 high anyway. Number 2 high right next door is pretty good too. Director Liu Chang was also so angry he was about to die. He couldn't help pointing at me and cursing, look at you, just look at you. Lin Yifei's mother. I'll give him one final chance right now. Either he sincerely reflects on his mistakes, or he drops out. I smiled. I wouldn't even stay at this crappy number 1 high if you begged me. Once word of this got out, the entire class was in an uproar. Are you insane, transfer schools? If you transfer, now what are you going to do about the college entrance exam? Just write a self-reflection and apologize. Why don't you? A few of my closer classmates all rushed over to try and persuade me. After all, the college entrance exam is a monumental event that decides one's entire life. The head teacher just told me, if you're willing to write that 3,000-word reflection and then take the blame and apologize, then this whole thing will be dropped. Otherwise, our whole class won't even have chemistry class, Liu Xian said speechlessly. Just because you got disciplined for fighting fine, whatever. Why do you have to drag us down with you? Can't you just apologize? Why should the whole class not be able to have class just because of you? Chen Siru already said. The teacher wasn't even angry anymore. Yet you just had to pick a fight with the teacher. And plus, aren't you screwing Chen Siru over too? By getting her punished as well. It's not enough that you're the only one getting disciplined. Now Chen Siru's parents have to be called in too. Are you happy now? Look, Chen Siru is even crying. She said her parents are already on their way to the school. Are you even a man? How can you make a girl cry like that? Right at this moment, suddenly everyone went completely quiet. Vice Principal Guo Haibo coughed twice, and then spoke up, who is Lin Yifei? Step outside for a second. The classmates all cast complicated expressions my way. And soon after, I came out into the hallway to talk things over privately with Vice Principal Guo Haibo. I thought it was going to be a friendly negotiation, but little did I know, it was just a barrage of attitude and lectures. He was saying things like, even if the teacher wronged you, you still have no right to talk back to the teacher? Do you think just because you have decent grades, you're some kind of hotshot now? Following right after was an angry roar. Our number 1 high doesn't need a student like you at all. If you don't want to study here, then get lost. And as for me, I expressionlessly replied, okay, Vice Principal. Guo Haibo was instantly gasping for breath out of sheer rage. He was genuinely encountering such a scumbag student for the very first time. So he directly cursed out, get dropped out then. Right at this moment, Chen Siru's parents finally arrived. But instead of criticizing and educating their daughter first, they immediately tried to clear her of any involvement, pulled a stern face and pointed right at me. What kind of trash are you, daring to say our kid is lying? Teacher, I insist you transfer this kid away. We can't let him stay in the same class as our Sirukyo. I see he was harassing Siro too. When my mom heard that, she was furious beyond belief. Just as she was about to retort, I immediately spoke up, I'm dropping out. Mom, you don't need to worry. After dropping out, my academic grades are only going to get better. Right at that moment, the physics teacher Chingshu Hui nearby let out a sigh and said there was actually a physics competition next month. I was planning to recommend you to participate in it. This competition is an incredible opportunity. And with your level, once you score well, you might even get extra points for the college entrance exam. There's only 1 slot per class. And if you drop out, this slot will just have to go to someone else. Chen Siru's mother shamelessly smiled and said, Teacher, can that competition give extra points for the college entrance exam too? Then look at our site. How about letting her try out for physics instead? Teacher Chingshu Hui awkwardly smiled. Well, her physics grades are just average. 2 days later, holding my withdrawal application form, I went to find the head teacher for his signature. You really just ruined your whole life. The head teacher, Song Wenbo, couldn't help criticizing me. I've never seen a student like you in my life. To think your grades are actually decent. I was even going to sign you up for the chemistry competition. Seeing that I nonchalantly opened my mouth and said, Teacher, if you apologize to me right now, I might consider staying and helping you compete in the chemistry competition. Once I win a prize, I can even write your name on it. Teacher Song Wenbo's face instantly turned pitch black. Get out, get out, get out. He immediately signed his name on the withdrawal application form right then and there. Take this to the disciplinary office, get the director's signature, and then hand it in at the principal's office and you're done. A moment later, I arrived at the disciplinary director's office. Dropping out, he then signed his signature on the withdrawal form. After signing, he didn't forget to mock me a few times. Finally, I made it to the principal's office. However, this time the person I was looking for was Principal Jung Seung-yoon. I took a deep breath and spoke up, Hello, Principal. I am Lin Yifei, applying to withdraw from school. Could you please sign off on it? I handed the application form over. Principal Jung Seung-yoon frowned and glanced down at the reason for withdrawal written on the form. Took a glance at the reason for application in the form. Had a conflict with the English teacher. Unable to study. Applying for withdrawal. You're the student who talked back to the teacher, huh? What a pity. Principal Jung Seung-yoon also felt it was a pity that such a rare student with decent grades was just dropping out like this. However, a student who gets into physical fights, talks back to teachers, and doesn't even hold the director in any regard, truly couldn't be kept around. The corners of my mouth curled up slightly, and a sudden flash of inspiration hit me. Principal, I heard Number 1 High is applying to become a provincial key demonstration school. If you need my help, you'll have to make the head teacher and the disciplinary director apologize to me, and then I might consider it. At that moment, Principal Jung Seung-yoon gave me a side eye. This was the first time anyone had ever dared to make demands of him like this. Utterly arrogant, get lost. Bulls, lacking manners and talking back to teachers. You even dare to ask the teacher to apologize to you? He immediately signed and approved the withdrawal. Back in the classroom as I packed up and prepared to leave, my seatmate Sunfei sighed and lamented, You're ruined. From now on, there won't even be anyone to copy homework from. I gave him a side eye and scolded with a laugh, Bro, all you know is copying homework. Can't you learn by yourself for once? Sunfei explained, My tuition. Well, it's useless, what can I do? I remembered that in my past life, Sunfei was one of the very few close classmates I had. Even after I bombed the college entrance exam, the two of us coincidentally ended up attending university in the same city. Moreover, it was Sunfei who told me that he found out Chen Siru and Zhao Tianlei were dating. Anyway, not long after graduation, news broke that the two of them were getting married, and both sides invited quite a few high school classmates to attend. In the end, I turned out to be the only clown. Thinking about it now, it still felt comical and ridiculous. And right at this moment, Sunfei secretly glanced at Chen Siru in the distance, and then whispered his complaints. I heard Chen Siru's mom even came to the classroom to greet the other classmates, telling everyone to keep an eye out and stop you from harassing Chen Siru. Hearing those words, I smirked, whatever. I'm transferring schools anyway. Finally, the dismissal bell rang, and everyone started packing their things. As for me, it was time to leave the school. I turned around and walked out the classroom door, but was stopped by a shout, Hey! At that moment, Chen Siru hesitated and said, I didn't mean to screw you over. She watched me finally get driven to dropping out, and her conscience seemed to still feel a tiny bit guilty. I turned my head back to look at Chen Siru and expressionlessly replied, To be honest, when you lied to the teacher, I was genuinely angry. I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. Chen Siru looked like she wanted to cry with grievance. No! How could I possibly hurt you on purpose? Looking at this female classmate in front of me, my heart no longer held any of that previous fondness. Her explanations were nothing more than cover-ups. At her core, she was just a bad person. I couldn't even help cursing out, You're pathetic too. Go block me along with Zhao Tianlei? With that, I turned around and walked away. This line had been bottled up in my heart for so long. Even when the two of them got married, I had imagined cursing them out countless times. But it had always been just an imagination. I never expected I'd actually get the chance to say it today. Turns out being reborn is seriously fucking awesome. This old man will never live a suppressed life again. After getting back home, my very first task was to turn on the computer and log into Number 1 High's school forum. I found my own post, so sorry. Due to personal reasons, Little Friend's withdrawal will have to be temporarily suspended. During the few days since I had been reborn, I had used my spare time to serialize a web novel on the school forum. I originally just did it for fun, to see if I had any talent for writing novels. But never did I expect that transferring schools would come so suddenly. Since I was leaving number 1 high anyway, there was no need to keep updating it on the forum, right? Because of this, I purposely left a message for my readers above. After seeing the suspension update, massive waves of fan comments appeared in the post. Why did you pause the updates? Hoping you can resume updating early. Looking at these comments, I instantly chuckled. It seems I still have a bit of talent after all. In the blink of an eye, Monday arrived, and I successfully transferred from number 1 high to number 2 high. Although number 2 high's teaching staff and resources were comparable to number 1 high, its college entrance exam acceptance rate was slightly worse. Right at that moment, Dad, who was driving, put on a stern face and said, "You really know how to toss things up? Scaring your grandpa half to death. Good thing number 2 high said they were willing to take you. Otherwise, I'd break your legs." In a flash, the car arrived at the gates of number 2 high. Because my academic grades were decent, the transfer process was completed shortly after YM, and even my class was assigned. Class 4 of senior year was number 2 high's key science track class, and the homeroom teacher, Liang Yuting, was an English teacher. The director brought me to find senior year class 4's homeroom teacher, Liang Yuting. After the homeroom teacher finished introducing my glorious history, she turned around and walked away. Yet I brought up a tiny request, "Teacher, can I sit next to Wen Mengqi, please?" At this moment, homeroom teacher Liang Yuting asked Wen Mengqi, "Do you know him?" "My former classmate, I know him." Homeroom teacher Liang Yuting also smiled and said, "All right." Chatting along the way, we arrived at the classroom entrance and found the math teacher. Inside, having the students work on a test paper, he politely nodded and then brought me into the classroom, telling the students, "Let me introduce the transfer student who has joined our class." After saying that, homeroom teacher Liang Yuting let me step forward myself to do a self-introduction. "Hello everyone, my name is Lin Yifei. My academic grades are just average, though my moral character is top tier and I never fight." At this moment, the homeroom teacher standing right beside me almost laughed out loud and then said, "From now on, Lin Yifei is transferring over to our class, and he will temporarily sit next to Wen Mengqi." As soon as those words fell, a girl wearing glasses and looking rather dazed raised her head and glanced at me. Actually, this was my first time seeing Wen Mengqi too, but I could tell right away, Wen Mengqi gave off a reserved and timid vibe. In the classroom, she belonged to the type who spoke little, didn't know much about socializing, and might even be the kind of girl who gets bullied by other students. This kind of girl is often very low-key and lacks presence in the classroom. But after graduation, when everyone looks back, they realize their judgment was completely off. Many alumni from the same cohort, and even classmates from the same class were completely buzzing with gossip. Even someone like her who graduated from number 1 high had heard plenty of news about it, which showed just how high Wen Mengqi's reputation was back then. At this moment, I proactively walked over and then helped move my desk and chair over to Wen Mengqi's side. After sitting down, the math teacher casually handed me a test paper as well. "You should take a crack at it too. We'll go over it in tomorrow's class." "Got it, teacher." Nobody expected that once the dismissal bell for break rang, me, the transfer student, would instantly become like an animal in a zoo being gawked at by everyone. Even students from neighboring classes came over to the hallway to watch the show, pointing and gossiping away. "Is that really him? I just asked my cousin at number 1 high. I heard he got into a fight with a sports major, then talked back to the teacher, and ended up forced to drop out." "No way. I heard it was because he was chasing a girl and got into a fight with someone else, only for that girl to not like him at all." Haha, dying of laughter. "Isn't that a total simp?" I never expected that even after transferring schools, because of the fight caused by Chen Xiru, I still carried the reputation of a simp. Right at this moment, physics class representative Wei Yingjie proactively came up to greet me. Classmate, you're pretty badass for fighting and dropping out at number 1 high." A rather pretty-looking female classmate walked over. Shen Xinyu smiled and said, "Wei Yingjie, you didn't know, did you? He chased the school bell from number 1 high and even beat up a sports major because of it. Word has it that the sports major was even the teacher's son, which is why he was forced to drop out." By the way, I actually know Chen Xiru. I looked at this new classmate with some surprise. "You know Chen Xiru and I used to be elementary school classmates." Hearing that, I curled my lip and muttered, "Well, transferring to this school was a waste of time then. No wonder as soon as I transferred from number 1 high and before my ass even hit the seat, my whole bottom line was exposed." Shen Xinyu blinked her eyes and suddenly asked with anticipation, "Do you want to try giving up on Chen Xiru and chasing me instead?" The classmates nearby all laughed out loud. "Don't you already have Zheng Yansong?" Shen Xinyu retorted. I never agreed to Jung Yan-song. Besides, I like top academic students. Someone who was in the top 11 of his grade at number 1 high will definitely be in the top 3 at our school. And I think he's pretty humorous. Clearly a top student, yet during his self-introduction, he said his academic grades are just average. Clearly got dropped out for fighting, yet said he never fights. Shen Xinyu looked at me full of anticipation. How about it? Or I can chase you instead. I feel like you should be my type. And I'm different from Chen Xiru. If someone were to fight for me, I'd be moved to tears, wouldn't you? I carefully sized up Shen Xinyue. Not gonna lie, among high schoolers, she really could be considered a pretty decent little beauty. After going to college and dressing up a bit later on, she'd definitely be at the class belle level. However, right at this moment, suddenly a voice rang out. He's just a total simp who the girl didn't like him at all. Yet he still went and fought people for her, ending up disciplined and dropped out. Isn't he just an idiot? Jung Yensung glanced sideways at me and then put on a threatening look. You'd better stay as far away from Shen Xinyue as possible. With that, he led a bunch of classmates holding basketballs and walked outside. If it were my past life, I might actually have been intimidated by his badass, overbearing warning. After all, with his delinquent youth persona, he looked like someone you didn't want to mess with. But seeing this kind of overbearing student now, it just felt utterly comical. To be honest, those people in the class who act super tough while studying, when you look back at them after graduation, you realize they were nothing special after all. And those pretty female classmates generally end up divorced with kids, or straight up married to some rich older uncle. Thinking of this, I glanced back over at Wen Mengi, who was sitting nearby, dumbly staring down and writing her homework. My own quiet, cute little wealthy girl is still the best. Right after that, I slumped directly onto my desk and tentatively asked, "What about you? Do you know me too?" Wen Mengqi froze blankly for a second, then started shaking her head. Good. Then let's reintroduce ourselves. My name is Lin Yifei. Wen Mengqi nervously looked at this transfer student, then glanced back at Jung Yansong, who had just walked out. Can you fight? I can't. They're just talking nonsense. Then you should be careful. What? Why? Wen Mengqi asked with some worry. Because Jung Yansong might beat you up. At this moment, I paused for a second. Was Jung Yansong the guy who was just talking to me? Wen Mengqi earnestly reminded me, really because Jung Yansong likes Shen Xinyue. And as for me, I unhurriedly replied, no worries, not an issue. Do you have a boyfriend? This sudden question made Wen Mengqi freeze up, staring dumbfounded at this transfer student, before shaking her head to indicate she didn't. Right following that, with a light flashing in my eyes, I pressed on, what about me? Do you want to be with me? Wen Mengqi was startled, instantly turning red as a beet. Stammering nervously, she said, there's a problem I don't know how to do. I'm gonna go ask the teacher. And then Wen Mengqi picked up a math test paper and walked out of the classroom. Looking at Wen Mengqi's personality like this, she probably hasn't even been confessed to by a guy yet, let alone encountered someone as direct as me. She must have been terrified. For some unknown reason, I felt a particularly anticipating vibe. Maybe life at number 2 high will actually be super interesting. Right until the class bell rang, did Wen Mengqi nervously return to the classroom. She didn't even dare to raise her head, hugging her test paper straight back to her seat, clearly regarding those confession-like words from just moments ago. She was both nervous, timid, and shy, and had no clue how to handle it. Shortly after, the English teacher walked into the classroom, raised her head to glance at me, and spoke with a serious expression just now. I heard someone gossiping about the new transfer student. I don't care what things were like before, but once you've come to our class, you're a member of our class. I don't want to see anyone talking behind their classmates' backs. Alright, I'll pass out the test papers. We're doing reading comprehension today. After you finish, I'll go over it. Clearly, the English teacher Liang Yuting had also heard some bad rumors about me transferring here, so she specifically criticized those people during class. During the course of the class, I happily discovered something. My own English proficiency completely crushed high school students at the same level. Although I bombed the college entrance exam, no matter what, I was someone who had passed the CET 6 in college. Therefore, whether it was vocabulary, various grammatical structures, English writing ability, reading comprehension, and so on, it was far too much stronger than ordinary high school students. Going through a reading test paper, I only got one question wrong. In my past life, I underperformed and only scored 112 points in English. If I performed normally, I could score around 125. But in this life, I felt like I had a high certainty of scoring above 140 points. After all, I had 2 innate advantages first. studying hard in college for English exams and graduate entrance exams, memorizing tons of vocabulary. Second, I even knew the college entrance exam questions in advance. The English teacher Liang Yuting, up on the podium, suddenly spoke up. All right, everyone's checked the answers as well. There are 25 questions in total. Raise your hand if you got fewer than 5 wrong. Swoosh. Quite a few classmates raised their hands. I glanced over out of 48 people in the class. 8 people raised their hands, meaning these people only got fewer than 5 wrong. It seems the proficiency level of a key class really isn't all that different from number 1 high. Fewer than 4 wrong. As soon as those words came out, 3 people put their hands down, leaving only 5 people in the class with their hands raised. These were the classmates in the class whose English proficiency had reached top tier status. However, to my slight surprise, just moments ago, that female classmate Shenjin Yue, who had proactively chatted me up, also raised her hand. It seems her English grades were genuinely quite good, fewer than 3 wrong. Out of the remaining 5 people, surprisingly, only 1 person raised their hand. The English teacher Liang Yuting asked, Shenjin Yo, how many did you get wrong? Teacher, I got 2 wrong. The English teacher Liang Yuting nodded and said, not bad. The difficulty of this test paper is still quite high. They were all pulled out from past real college entrance exam questions. Liang Yuting finally glanced over at me again and asked with curiosity, Lin Yifei, your English grades shouldn't be bad. How many did you get wrong? As soon as those words fell, everyone turned their gaze toward me, waiting for my answer, thinking that since I just transferred, I should probably keep a low profile. I casually replied, teacher, I got quite a few wrong. Didn't perform well? It's fine. Your seatmate Wen Menqi's English is quite good. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask her. A light flashed in my eyes and I said, that's fantastic. Ato 1, I have way too many things I don't understand. Wen Mengqi instantly grew nervous, guiltily saying, teacher, I'm not really good at teaching people. Clearly, I had startled her just now. She didn't even dare to fantasize about the me sitting right beside her anymore. Shenjin Yue, however, proactively offered, I can do it, teacher. I'm the English class representative. I can teach the new classmate. After saying that, Shenjin Yue blinked at me and flashed what she thought was a charming smile. Right. Following that, I declined, no need. Wen Mengqi can teach me just fine. However, right at this moment, Zheng Yansong, sitting over there, chimed in with a punk-ass attitude, still calling yourself a top student. You're nothing special. Someone who gets more than 5 questions wrong on this kind of test paper probably can't even score 120 on the real exam, right? And here I thought the top student from number 1 high was supposed to be some big deal. Shenjin Yue gave Zheng Yansong a speechless side-eye. Anyone can hear you're just deliberately targeting the new classmate. Besides, he was talking about his overall score, not a single subject score. Who's to say his math or Chinese isn't good? Aren't you lopsided in your subjects too? All right. Number 1 high is number 1 high. And number 2 high is number 2 high. Our number 2 high is inherently no worse than other schools. So nobody needs to look down on themselves. Mentioning this, it reminds me, we happen to have an English-speaking competition next week, with 3 slots available per class. Anyone who wants to go can sign up with me. This competition is a district-wide uniform exam, requiring vocabulary beyond the high school level to register. It tests students' extracurricular accumulation. If you place in the exam, not only will you get a certificate, but a cash prize too. If you perform well, you can even bring glory to our number 2 high. Hearing this, I suddenly got energized and immediately raised my hand to shout, teacher, I want to sign up. Zheng Yansong mocked, there are only 3 slots for the whole class. If we can't even beat our own class, how are we supposed to compete with the whole district? Teacher, if you give one of the slots to him, then it wouldn't be fair to the other classmates. At this moment, I chuckled. How come I feel like you're specifically targeting me, classmate? I'm not targeting you. I'm just saying there are only 3 slots, so we definitely need to run a screening process. And as the teacher just said, we're doing this to bring glory to number 2 high. So we obviously have to pick the most outstanding people. The English teacher Liang Yuting said, how about this? Let's first see how many people want to sign up. If it's exactly 3, then there's no need to compete. If too many people sign up, we'll run a screening. Let's leave it at that for now. Right before leaving, Liang Yuting even purposely walked over to my side and asked, let me see your test paper. Probably because I was a transfer student, Liang Yuting wasn't entirely sure of my English proficiency either, so she wanted to check how I actually did and figure out how to help me improve my grades later on. I froze for a second and replied, right here, teacher. Remember to pick me for the speaking competition. I'm super strong at it. The homeroom teacher, Liang Yuting, said, let's see about that. However, the next second, Liang Yuting flipped through the test paper and froze. The entire test paper was actually all correct. Only a single multiple choice question was wrong. Didn't you say you got a lot wrong? How come I see your test paper only has one wrong? As soon as those words dropped, the students in the class instantly widened their eyes, successively turning their gazes toward me. And as for me, with a face full of sincere sighs, I said, "Teacher, getting a single question wrong is already unacceptable to me. Not getting a 100% is failure." Swoosh! The students in the class instantly erupted in an uproar. English. Class representative Shen Xinyue even covered her mouth in excitement. So badass as expected of a top student from number 1 high, Zheng Yansong's mouth twitched slightly. He glanced down at his own test paper and gritted his teeth, saying, "Such a show-off." The English teacher, Liang Yuting, couldn't help but chuckle as she said to me, "You kid, when you're supposed to raise your hand, why didn't you raise it? You did great. Keep up the good work." After seeing my test paper, his heart instantly settled down. Originally back at the disciplinary office, the people over there had said he was a top-tier student with outstanding academic grades. Just now, he had genuinely mistaken him for someone whose English was slightly weaker, while his other subjects were a bit stronger. Now it seemed, at least his English proficiency was still quite extraordinary. As I just put away my English test paper, I heard a female classmate complaining behind me, "Why did it stop updating Shen Yue, the web novel on the number 1 high forum you recommended last time?" Stopped updating. Two female classmates instantly gathered around Shen Yue and began discussing it. Even when Menqi took out her phone and tapped open the forum to take a glance. Sure enough, seeing the update suspension notice, I asked with some curiosity, "You read it too?" When Mengqi bit her lip and cautiously nodded. "How is it? Is it good?" When Mengqi nodded again. "Good." I instantly smiled with satisfaction. "Actually, I think it's just so-so." However, as soon as those words came out, they were overheard by Zhang Shiki, who was sitting in front. Zhang Shiki turned around, looked at this top student, transfer student from number 1 high, and asked with curiosity, "Aren't you from number 1 high? Do you know who wrote this novel?" I asked back in surprise. "You know it too. How come you guys are all reading it?" When Mengqi softly replied, "Teacher Luo introduced it." "A teacher Luo," Zhang Shiki explained, "that's our Chinese teacher. It seemed like the day before yesterday or 3 days ago. The teacher mentioned it in passing during our class, saying there's a novel on the number 1 high forum that's written pretty interestingly. We got a bit curious and went to check it out. And it's genuinely so interesting. You guys at number 1 high really have extraordinary talent. To think someone actually knows how to write this kind of novel." Only then did a light dawn on me. No wonder I was wondering why my novel had so many people reading it. Turns out a teacher gave it a promotional push. The corners of my mouth curled up slightly. It seems I should ask the teacher for her opinion later during Chinese class. If there's no problem, I'll just post it online and become a contracted author. Right at this moment, Shen Xinyue suddenly shouted loudly, "New classmates, Lin Yifei, do you know the person at your number 1 high who writes novels on the forum?" Suddenly, everyone's gaze fell upon me. Clearly, they were all very curious. After all, since I was a top 10 student in number 1 high's grade, maybe I really did know him. I smiled slightly and said, "I know him." As soon as those words dropped, many classmates got excited. I feel like if it were made into a TV show, it would definitely blow up. I've never read this type of novel before. The author is insanely talented. I deliberately kept them in suspense, and then said with a smile, "Actually, it's not as exaggerated as all that. I'll help you guys ask him later, when he'll resume updates." Facing this massive crowd of book fans, this was genuinely my first time feeling the charm of writing novels. I even deliberately glanced over at my cute, wealthy girl seatmate beside me and found that Wen Mengqi was also staring at me like a curious baby. "I'll ask clearly and let you guys know later." Everyone could only sigh and leave. Still, this could be considered good news. At this moment, the class bell rang. This period was official Chinese class. Shortly after, the Chinese teacher, Luo Wengshuan, walked into the classroom. "Where's the new classmate?" "Right here." I immediately raised my hand. The Chinese teacher, Luo Wengshuan, nodded and said, "I've looked at the grade rankings from number 1 high a few times. I remember your Chinese is a weak point, right?" "That's right, teacher. Actually, my Chinese grades really were the worst, mainly because I was bad at classical Chinese and also not very good at reading comprehension questions. Out of so many subjects during the college entrance exam, only Chinese performed normally. Yet it was still merely 114 points. Shortly after the teacher was lecturing in class, while I turned my head and whispered playfully to my seatmate, "Hey, classmate, your handwriting is so pretty, neat, upright, and full of character, just like a woman's." You'd probably look really good if you took off your glasses. Wen Menqi bit her lip shyly. Having zero experience being pursued by guys, this was her very first time, and she had no clue how to handle it. So she could only keep her head down and pretend not to hear, seeing Wen Menqi offering no response and studying diligently. I didn't have the face to disturb her studying any further either. Instead, I took out my phone and started writing my web novel. Finally, the class break bell rang, and the Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan walked down from the podium. Glancing down at me playing on my phone, his expression instantly sank. You were playing on it the whole time, playing for the entire class period? Suddenly, the surrounding classmates all put on expressions of watching a show. In fact, the people sitting right next to me had all seen it. This top student, transfer student from number 1 high, had been playing on his phone during class the whole time. Sure enough, he got busted by the teacher. I nodded and replied, I don't really like Chinese class. The Chinese teacher, Luo Wengshuan, put on a stern face and said, get outside. The classmates in the class instantly erupted in an uproar, discussing it animatedly and saying all sorts of things. Out in the hallway on the other side, the Chinese teacher, Luo Wengshuan, said with a dark expression, why were you playing on your phone? You know yourself that your Chinese grades are a weak spot. Don't you want to catch up? I pursed my lips and said, teacher, actually Chinese isn't my weak spot. I did it on purpose. I just wanted to request if you could let me write things during class from now on. The Chinese teacher, Luo Wengshuan, frowned. Write things? Well, what do you mean? I handed my phone over. The teacher took the phone, glanced at it, and instantly froze. Wait, is this the upcoming plot? Teacher, that novel on the number 1 high forum was actually written by me. I was just writing the update a moment ago. The Chinese teacher, Luo Wengshuan, was stunned in shock. You wrote it? Looking closer, sure enough, the other person's account was indeed the publisher of that novel. You really wrote it? The Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan gasped. He truly hadn't expected this. His expression instantly shifted from a stern, critical look to a smile of appreciation and admiration. After all, he genuinely loved reading this novel too. Otherwise, he wouldn't have introduced it to the students in class. Luo Wengshuan smiled and said, even so, this still won't do. Even though you wrote the novel, and it's indeed written really well, you still have to attend class. And your college entrance exam scores are very important too. At this moment, I explained, actually, my Chinese is super strong. I guarantee above 140 on the college entrance exam. Teacher, trust me. I wouldn't make a joke out of my own future. The Chinese teacher, Luo Wengshuan, frowned and muttered, that still won't do. Unless on Friday's for-school joint exam, you can get first place in the whole school, then I might consider it. First place in total score or first place in Chinese? Of course, first place in Chinese. Didn't you say you were confident in getting 140 on the Gaokao? Never mind a 140, if you can just get 135, that's about enough. Hearing those words, I agreed without even considering it. Then let's make that a deal. If I get first place in the whole school for Chinese on the for-school joint exam, then let me write my novel during class. Luo Wengshuan tentatively asked, are you confident? I grinned from ear to ear. Confidence, that's an absolute must. The for-school joint exam was essentially a joint test among 4 high schools. Number 1 high, number 2 high experimental high school, and Huaxi High. The test questions were all identical, because these 4 schools had the highest college entrance exam acceptance rates in the city. Among them, number 1 high and Huaxi were the top tier. Number 2 high was a notch lower, and experimental high school ranked at the bottom. Although the joint exam scores didn't represent the actual college entrance exam, the exam rankings carried immense reference value, judging by the joint exam rankings from the past few years. The batch of students with top-tier joint exam scores were all prime seed candidates for key undergraduate programs in the Gaokao. The Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan finally asked out of curiosity, you actually write this novel pretty well, though. You could consider signing up for that new concept essay competition. A light flashed in my eyes. Is that the national essay contest hosted by Manhwa Literature? Right. The Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan nodded. That's the one. Do you want to give it a try? I heard a few students at number 1 high signed up too, and they're even getting individual tutoring for it. During our school meeting last week, the leadership mentioned it in passing. Originally, we weren't planning on doing it because the national competition is way too difficult, and our school doesn't really have a chance at placing. Still, I think you could give it a shot. The corners of my mouth curled up slightly, and I asked, does this thing help our school compete for the provincial key demonstration school status? The Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan was somewhat surprised, not expecting this kid to even understand that. It definitely helps. If you score well, number 2 high's reputation will definitely blow up. I'm signing up. The Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan said, "You kid have got guts. Then I'll wait for your joint exam scores to come back." Oh, right. When are you updating that novel of yours? Tomorrow, I should be able to update a chapter tomorrow. After I returned to the classroom, I was instantly surrounded by a few gossiping classmates. How was it? What did teacher Luo say to you? Right at this moment, before my butt even hit the seat, the Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan suddenly returned to the classroom. There was one more thing I forgot to mention just now. There's a brand new rule for this Friday's for-school joint exam. During the exam, you won't be testing in your own classroom. You'll be shuffled off to other classrooms instead. Lin Yifei, is that fine with you? As those words dropped, quite a few people cast puzzled glances my way, not understanding what this question meant. I nodded and replied, "Got it, teacher." As soon as the teacher left, Jiang Shiki, who was sitting in front, turned around and asked, "What does that mean? Why did the teacher ask if you have a problem with it?" I shrugged and smiled. "Nothing really. I told the teacher not to worry about me during class. And the teacher told me that for the for-school joint exam, if I get first place in the whole school for Chinese, he'll let me." As soon as those words came out, Jiang Shiki's eyes widened in instant excitement. "Oh my god, first place in the whole school? For real?" Even Wen Mengqi froze, staring dumbfounded at her seatmate. Just moments ago, he was still asking her to teach him Chinese. And in the blink of an eye, he's aiming for first place in Chinese? I amusedly smiled and said, "Keep a low profile, keep a low profile." Just saying it like that doesn't mean I'll actually get it. Suddenly feeling my stomach rumbling. "Didn't class end already? Why aren't you guys going to get food?" Jiang Shiki said I was waiting for him. He said you don't have a meal card, and that he had to wait for you to come back and go together. I deliberately teased classmate Wen. "You're so good to me." Wen Mengqi's ears turned completely red in an instant. She didn't speak, just lowered her head and pulled her lunchbox out from the desk drawer. The afternoon classes were filled with endless test papers. Suddenly, my phone gave a ding. Sunfei sent over a message, "Holy shit. You went to class 4 of number 2 high." I paused for a second, not expecting Sunfei to actually find out. "Your photo at number 2 high got posted on the campus network, and the forum is asking why you transferred. Chensiru's classmates are in that class too?" "I know, Shen Yu told me." "Oh, right. That novel you wrote on the forum seems to have blown up. I thought I read it wrong at first. It blew up after serializing just 4 chapters. Today, the whole class is talking about why you aren't updating." How do they know it's me? They don't know. They're just complaining about why the author isn't updating yet. Though Chensiru probably knows it's you, right? Also, the head teacher just came over asking if anyone knows who wrote that novel on the number 1 high forum. They said a provincial leader came over for an open class today, and after accidentally reading that novel, he kept praising the principal and said he wants to archive a copy in the school library as a souvenir. Should I tell the teacher you're the one who wrote it? Although nobody had explicitly exposed who wrote the forum novel, yet Chensiru took the initiative to go to the teacher's office and told the homeroom teacher, Song Wenbo, that she knew who wrote it. The homeroom teacher, Song Wenbo, said, "You came at the right time. I was just saying that the novel on our school's forum should be written by a student from our school. This time we happened to have leaders from the Education Bureau visiting, and they took a fancy to this novel at first glance. Now, the principal's idea is to take advantage of the momentum and set up a literature club at school, and then have this student share their writing insights and experiences." By the way, was it written by a student in our class? Chensiru hesitated for a moment and nodded, saying yes. Shortly after, Song Wenbo asked Chensiru who wrote it. Chensiru fell silent for a moment. Actually, she had also been hesitating all along, whether to say it out loud or not. After all, I had already dropped out. Suddenly, Vice Principal Guo Haibo called over the phone, inquiring who wrote the novel. Song Wenbo blindly blurted out, "Yes, yes, yes. It was written by a student in our class." After hanging up the phone, he only just remembered that Chensiru hadn't told him who wrote it yet. Then he directly asked, "By the way, you haven't said who wrote it yet." The homeroom teacher, Song Wenbo, looked at Chensiru full of anticipation. Chensiru stammered, somewhat awkwardly and quietly saying, "Teacher, how about we just forget it?" Song Wenbo said, "Forget what?" "Could it be that you wrote it, Chen?" Siru instantly turned pale with nervousness and stammered, "No, it wasn't written by me." Then spit it out. Why are you still too scared to say it?" The homeroom teacher, Song Wenbo, instructed the school won't pursue any punishments and will even give encouragement. Finally, under pressure, Chensiru quietly blurted out a name, Lin Yifei. Hearing those words, The homeroom teacher Song Wenbo was completely dumbfounded. What? You're saying the novel on this forum was written by Lin Yifei? Chensiru lowered her head and replied, I think so. Because I checked the poster's account, and it's his account. The homeroom teacher Song Wenbo was utterly dumbstruck. His brain buzzing with noise. How could that be? His Chinese grades have always been nothing special, and his compositions were always just mediocre. How could it be him? Chensiru said with some anxiety, I don't know either. But that account really is Lin Yifei's. I just confirmed it a moment ago by looking up past chat records. The homeroom teacher Song Wenbo immediately rubbed his head, feeling like he had just swallowed a piece of shit. No, why didn't you say so earlier? Before Vice Principal Guo called me just now. Why didn't you say it was written by Lin Yifei? After making such a big fuss, the person isn't even here anymore. Yet I already promised Principal Guo that sure. Good thing the Education Bureau leaders didn't say they wanted to see the person in the flesh. What if they actually wanted to find someone? Chensiru lowered her head with a wronged expression. I'm sorry, teacher. I didn't know either. I was just a bit too scared to say it. After all, he already dropped out. The homeroom teacher, Song Wenbo, was so angry he started cursing. The most crucial part was that because of this, he had directly announced in the teacher's group chat that it was written by a student in his own class. Wasn't he just slapping himself in the face? A student who dropped out? And furthermore, a student who had argued with him turned out to be the person they needed to find praise and encourage. The homeroom teacher Song Wenbo gritted his teeth and said, Anyway, he stopped updating and isn't writing anymore. Just act like you don't know who wrote it, and I'll make up an excuse to explain it to the school leaders. Remember, you must never tell anyone that it was written by Lin Yifei, just say you don't know. Chensiru seemed like she still wanted to say something, but ultimately held it back. The homeroom teacher Song Wenbo angrily massaged his temples, then adjusted his emotions, and only then took out his phone and dialed Vice Principal Guo Haibo's number. Principal Guo, I'm truly sorry. I just communicated with that student, and this novel was actually plagiarized by him from somewhere else online. There was only that tiny bit of content, and there's nothing else after it. Therefore, he was too embarrassed to come forward and admit he wrote it. After hanging up the phone, Thuntuin Owan, the homeroom teacher Song Wenbo, let out a complete sigh of relief. However, just to be safe, and out of fear that other students might know I wrote this, he had to go into the class and give a heads up, instructing everyone to stop discussing this matter. Shortly after, Song Wenbo quickly arrived at the classroom entrance and found the English teacher inside getting ready to start class. The homeroom teacher Song Wenbo smiled slightly and said, let me say 2 words. As for that number 1 high form novel, just drop it. The principal said since it stopped updating, we'll leave it be. Everyone don't worry about who wrote it either. Even if you know, don't say it out loud. From now on, stop gossiping about this matter and properly focus your minds on your studies. The 4-school joint exam is coming up immediately, so strive to score a good grade. However, right as he was about to turn and leave, suddenly a classmate shouted, Teacher! That's not right. This novel updated again, just 5 minutes ago. The homeroom teacher Song Wenbo suddenly felt a chill in his heart, freezing like he was struck by a bolt of lightning from a clear blue sky. Updated. For real. In an instant, people in the class successively pulled out their phones and began checking the forum content. Sure enough, that number 1 high forum novel, The Little Friend's Withdrawal, had actually updated a fresh chapter of content. After being suspended for days, the homeroom teacher Song Wenbo stood there completely dumbfounded, his inner heart already churning with monstrous waves. He subconsciously roared, We're in the middle of class. Who told you guys to look at your phones? Hand over all your phones after class. The students in the class were all struck dumb, getting thoroughly terrified, right until the homeroom teacher Song Wenbo left. Did everyone let out a cold sweat and start discussing it? Why did teacher Song suddenly flip out? At this moment, Sunfei seemed to have guessed something, the corners of his mouth curling up slightly as he secretly glanced at Chensiru. Sure enough, the expression on her face wasn't right either, so he immediately texted me in secret to tell me what had just happened. And at this moment back in the office, Song Wenbo couldn't help rubbing his head. What am I supposed to do now? I literally just said the novel couldn't be continued, and yet this bastard went and updated it. If I honestly confess about the novel writing matter, and that student has already dropped out, that's equivalent to admitting I lied just now. If I don't confess, what if the school leadership wants to find this student? At this moment, the homeroom teacher Song Wenbo had a flash of inspiration and immediately dialed the disciplinary director Liu Chong. Shortly after he told the other person about how the forum novel was written by me, Liu Chong couldn't help retorting, You could have just said he dropped out. Wouldn't that have been fine? You had to go and say the guy plagiarized it from elsewhere. How are you going to explain it now that he keeps updating? This isn't something I can handle. Figure it out yourself. The homeroom teacher, Song Wenbo, also gritted his teeth and said, how am I supposed to figure it out? Should I just say your son got into a fight with someone, then colluded on an alibi with a female classmate, and forced Lin Yifei into dropping out, huh? As those words dropped, the phone instantly fell into silence. Liu Qiang said with a somewhat icy tone, then what do you want? The homeroom teacher, Song Wenbo, frowned and said, we'll directly contact the school, forum admin, claim we're worried it affects studies, and directly delete Lin Yifei's account, or ban him. Meanwhile, over at number 2 high, some people also discovered that the novel had resumed updating, prompting quite a few to pull out their phones and log in to check. Right at this moment, physics class. Representative Wei Yingjie ran right over, stood beside me and asked, by the way, don't you know the author? Can you ask him to update at a fixed time? He writes so well. Right at this moment, when Menki suddenly let out an ah and blurted, how come this post got deleted? In an instant, everyone was completely baffled. It was still looking fine just a moment ago, only to get deleted all of a sudden. I frowned, feeling something was off. I checked the post inside my own account and discovered it really had been deleted. I blurted out with a sarcastic tease, badass, real badass, they're really going for total annihilation. Jiang Shiki asked with curiosity, what do you mean? I had just opened my mouth to say something when I noticed the math teacher had already arrived at the classroom entrance. Shortly after, I casually sent a message to Sun Fei, only to find out the other person had already texted me first. Your post got deleted. Feels like the homeroom teacher did it. He just told us not to discuss this matter. At this moment, the math teacher cleared his throat on the podium and said, Friday's for-school joint exam. Everyone should know about it by now, right? This time, we're swapping classrooms for the exam, so everyone needs to take it seriously. Next, I'm going to hand out 2 test papers to everyone. They are the math papers from the for-school joint exam the year before last. I copied one part, and the other part consists of questions I wrote myself. Class representative, come up here and pass out the papers. However, right at this moment, suddenly, the Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan arrived at the classroom entrance, knocked on the door and said, Lin Yifei, come outside for a second. Everyone cast curious glances back at me sitting in the rear. Out in the hallway, the Chinese teacher lowered his voice and asked, how come your novel got deleted? I shrugged with a smile. I don't know either. Didn't anyone notify you? I just heard a teacher from number 1 high say that education bureau leaders even praised your novel. How did it suddenly get deleted? A light instantly flashed in my eyes. I get it, teacher, because I dropped out. They deleted it. Otherwise, it wouldn't look good if it kept fermenting. The Chinese teacher Luo Wengxuan realized in the enlightenment seems like it. Then why don't you directly update it on number 2 high's forum? Anyway, since you're at number 2 high now, nobody will dare delete your post. Looking back, if you place in the new concept essay competition, who knows, your novel might even get published as a book. After that, I returned to the classroom for class. Not long after, the math teacher announced, take a 5-minute break. We'll continue shortly. Right as I stood up to go take a piss, suddenly Shenxin Yue came running over and said with a cheeky grin, I know a secret. Then she leaned in right next to my ear and whispered, that novel was written by you, right? I raised my eyebrows slightly and asked, did Chen Siru tell you? Shenxin Yu said smugly, I'm not telling you. I also whispered right next to this female classmate's ear, I'll tell you a secret too. I'm planning to resume updating on the number 2 high forum. As those words dropped, she cheerfully started clapping with a grin. At this moment, I suddenly discovered that the pen on my desk, as well as the notebook I had just borrowed from Wen Meng Qi, were both gone. I asked Wen Mengqi with a puzzled look, did you take your pen and notebook back? Seeing that Wen Mengqi didn't speak, I reached out to grab them myself, only to be blocked by Wen Mengqi. No, go borrow from Shenxin Yue instead. I let out a sound, glanced at the stoic face of my deskmate, the little rich girl Wen Mengqi, and asked, are you jealous? Wen Mengqi let out a hum and said, aren't you guys super close? Why come to me to borrow anything? I have to admit, the little rich girl, Wen Mengqi, acting jealous, was actually kind of cute. Looking at my still pouting deskmate and little rich girl, I thought for a moment and directly unlocked my phone, letting her take a look at my forum account. After stubbornly glancing at it, she instantly covered her shocked little mouth. Suddenly I went, shh, and playfully blocked her mouth with my hand, then whispered, now you know, right? Afterwards, I told her everything, how Shenxin Yue found out the forum. Novel was written by me, along with the reason why I got into a fight with the disciplinary director's son back at number 1 high, explaining it all to her. During Wednesday's PE class, the teacher made everyone run 500 meters. Watching Wen Menqi's running form, I finally understood why no guys pursued her, and why she didn't even have any close friends among classmates. It was probably because she got mocked too much by her peers, which resulted in her introverted personality. Yet at this moment, I suddenly felt like I had discovered a hidden gem kind of girl. The most important thing was, since nobody appreciates this adorable little rich girl, then I'll be the one to cherish you from now on. After that, I went straight onto the sports field and started running alongside Wen Mengqi. As expected, Wen Mengqi showed a self-deprecating expression, keeping her head down without speaking as she kept running. At this moment, I asked from beside her, "What do you want to drink? I'll go buy it for you. Also, you really don't need to care about those idle gossipers." Only then did Wen Mengqi cautiously raise her head, though you could tell she was still somewhat insecure and timid. Running along, she shyly and quietly asked, You aren't going to laugh at me?" In the blink of an eye, everyone finished running. Wen Mengxi, Jiang Shiki, and I were resting in place. Then I slowly smiled and asked, "Are you guys going to play badminton later?" The two of them shook their heads. Speaking softly, "We'll just sit here for a bit is fine." However, right there in the resting area, everyone stared dumbfounded at my actions. Clearly, Wen Mengqi and Jiang Shiki both belonged to the type of girls who had been slapped with bad labels. They didn't look ugly, they just lacked that typical girlish charm. At this moment, Shen Qinyue suddenly smiled and said, "Why don't we invite them over to play together?" With that, she invited Wen Mengqi and Jiang Shiki over to play shuttlecock together. I took advantage of this time to post my previous novel onto the number 2 high forum, and incidentally updated an extra new chapter. As I was writing, I suddenly looked up and saw Wen Mengqi and Jiang Shiki both wearing dark expressions as they turned and walked toward the school building. Wen Mengqi was even walking while wiping away her tears, so I quickly chased after them. Just as I was about to ask what was going on, unexpectedly Wen Mengqi flushed red and looked at me full of grievance. Then, without saying a single word, she sprinted straight toward the teaching building. Jiang Shiki also gritted her teeth in a dilemma, then chased after her. Right before leaving, she turned back and yelled at me, "It's all because of you." As those words dropped, I gave chase with a completely baffled look on my face, grabbed Jiang Shiki and asked, "Explain yourself clearly. Why is she crying?" Jiang Shiki let out a sigh, then glanced back at the group of girls playing shuttlecock in the distance. "When you bought us drinks earlier, they saw it. They were just talking about it right now. And I casually said that you didn't buy them for us, but rather for Wen Mengqi. As a result, they all started jeering right away, saying things like how you'd actually go after Mengqi, while also saying your taste is so bad. Your preference is so unique that it's totally a case of a fresh flower stuck in cow manure." The corners of my mouth twitched slightly, and I asked in disbelief, "Who said that? Who said a fresh flower was stuck in cow manure? Are you saying I'm the cow manure?" Jiang Shiki bit her lip and softly said, "They said you're the fresh flower." I couldn't help laughing angrily. "Who said it? Tell me." Zhu Jiaying said it. Shen Xinyu said she didn't expect Lin Yifei's taste to be so bad. And then Xu Jiaying said it was a fresh flower, stuck in cow manure. "All right, you go on up first. I'm going to find Xu Jiaying and make her apologize." With that, I walked straight over to the female students playing shuttlecock. Seeing me walk up, Xin Xingyue and the other girls seemed to guess what was going on. Then Shen Xinyu awkwardly smiled and said, Sorry. We seem to have made Wen Mengqi cry just now." I took a deep breath with a serious expression on my face and said, "Apologize. Though I guess you guys definitely won't be able to say it out loud, so you and Xu Jing write an apology note for her instead." As those words dropped, Shen Xinyu froze. Me too, I have to write one as well." Shen Xinyu retorted with a hint of jealousy. "No way. Why should I?" I glared at her with wide eyes and barked, "I said apologize. Do you really want me to start cursing you out?" Shen Xinyu was startled, stumped into a complete daze. Even those female students kicking the shuttlecock in the distance were struck dumbfounded. None of them expected me to suddenly blow up with such a huge temper. With her eye sockets turning red, Shen Xinyu burst into tears. She squatted right down onto the ground crying while wiping her tears. However, the boys seeing this scene also started stirring up a commotion. Seeing this situation, Zheng Yansong immediately ran over. "What's wrong with you? Crying, did he bully you?" Shen Xinyue shook her head while crying, stood up and said, "What business of yours is it?" Finally, she glared at me and turned to leave. Zheng Yansong's mouth twitched slightly, and he pointed at me shouting, "Don't you dare leave after school." That same afternoon, The atmosphere in the class turned extremely bizarre. Everyone was whispering to each other, especially during the last self-study period before dismissal. At this time, Zhang Shiki passed a note to Wen Menqi. I heard Lin Yifei made Shen Xinyu cry, and Zheng Yansong said he's going to find people to beat him up after school. Seeing these lines of text, Wen Mengqi nervously bit her lip, then glanced at me sitting nearby, and whispered, "Take a look at this." Wen Mengqi's eyes were filled with worry, and biting her lip, she softly said, "I'm sorry. Should we tell a teacher?" I frowned and replied, "No way. If we tell a teacher, they'll definitely drag you into it as well in the end. I don't want you to get dragged into this." In reality, one could easily imagine once the four of us, myself, Shen Xingyue, Wen Mengqi, and Zheng Yansong were called away by the teachers, what kind of situation would unfold? Even if the matter seemed resolved on the surface, the gossip and public opinion among surrounding classmates would instead become increasingly exaggerated. After all, back when he was at number 1 high in his past life, he had already experienced this once. Idle chatter and malicious rumors truly have the power to completely shatter a fragile psychological defense. Line, let alone someone like Wen Mengqi, a girl who already carried a slight sense of insecurity to begin with. Of course, I could never push her out into the spotlight. Little rich girl. Wen Mengqi looked at me with a wronged and frightened expression, then finally used a pen to write a few words on paper and passed it over. "I'll go apologize to him." I gave her a blank look, and then wrote back on the paper, "You're not allowed to go. I have a way." Actually, when dealing with these so-called off-campus gang fights and brawls, the simplest and most direct method is to let them know you're way more savage than they are, forcing them to back down in the face of difficulty. Then the corners of my mouth curled up into a side smile. As I passed the note back, "Do you have any money? Lend me some cash. I'll scrape together some money to hire people." Yet nobody expected that just 2 minutes later I would receive a transfer from her. I stared dumbfounded at the numbers on the screen. Tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. There was actually a total of 286,751 yuan. I was completely baffled. So this is what they call a legendary little rich girl. A high school senior actually having this much cash. Is it enough? If it's not enough, I can ask my mom for a bit more. It's enough. I couldn't help covering my head and laughing out loud. This is seriously too badass. Then I directly scrolled through my friends list to find a bunch of people, only to realize it's still better to just contact Sun Fei. Someone's planning to jump me after school. Talk to your cousin. Get me some guys to come to the number 2 high school gates after school today. 300 per person, and an extra 500 if hands are thrown. Sun Fei was instantly dumbfounded. What kind of situation is this? Isn't number 2 high supposed to be that wild? Following that, I immediately transferred 30,000 yuan over. Holy shit. 30 grand. Are you seriously trying to summon 100 people? After confirming everything with Sun Fei, the corners of my mouth curved upward slightly, and I subconsciously raised my head to glance at Zheng Yansong in the distance. The guy seemed to be staring right back at me too. Then the bell for the end of the school day rang out. At this moment, quite a few people subconsciously turned their heads back to take a look at me sitting in the rear. Even the English class representative Shen Xinyue couldn't help walking over, and with a complex emotional expression pulled me toward the back of the classroom, whispering, why don't you avoid going outside for now? The guys Zheng Yansong called are waiting for you outside the school." Shen Xinyu shook her head full of worry. "I'm sorry. I told him not to, but he insists on giving you trouble. If worse comes to worse, why don't you just go apologize to him?" Previously, someone had already gotten beaten up once because of this. I let out an amused laugh and asked, "What are you worried about me? You're a boarding student too, right? Just remember to apologize to Wen Mengqi during evening self-study." As those words dropped, I walked out of the classroom with absolute swagger. Seeing that her persuasion failed, Shen Yue could only turn back and plead with Wen Mengqi, "I'm sorry. I really didn't know it would turn out like this. Why don't you talk to him and tell him not to go out to the school gates yet? Otherwise, he's really going to get beaten up." Shen Yue squatted right next to Wen Mengqi's desk, begging the other girl for help with a face full of terror. Wen Mengqi shook her head and replied earnestly, "I trust him." Shen Yue was practically on the verge of crying with frustration. "No, it's not a matter of whether you trust him or not. Lin Yifei definitely can't beat those guys. Zheng Yansong called a ton of people here. I admit I shouldn't have said those things to you guys earlier. I was just feeling a little jealous, okay? But I really don't want to watch Lin Yifei get beaten up by them. Aren't you close with him? Talk some sense into him." Wen Mengqi hesitated for a moment, but ultimately still shook her head, and softly said, "Actually, he also called people." As those words dropped, Shen Yue became frantic and exasperated. covering her head as she muttered, "Then what are we supposed to do?" Gritting her teeth, she prepared to go to the teacher's office to snitch, only to have Wen Mengqi muster up the courage to say, "You can't go." He said, "We can't tell the teachers." At this moment, the little rich girl, Wen Mengqi's gaze suddenly turned very serious. If she had run into this kind of situation in the past, she wouldn't have known how to handle it either. But right now, she felt she ought to trust me. If she went and told the teachers now, then all my previous preparations would go to waste. Shen Yuo anxiously explained, "Are you out of your mind? If this really blows up into a big deal, who knows, Lin Yifei might get expelled all over again." The little rich girl, Wen Mengqi, took a deep breath and said with calm poise, "That's precisely why we have to trust him. We can't tell the teachers." Shen Yu's mouth opened slightly, looking at Wen Mengqi with a sense of disbelief. At this exact fraction of a second, it felt almost like being in a dream. Meanwhile, right by the school gates, several of my classmates were whispering among themselves, "Hey, aren't you scared walking out right now? I remember that guy is always hanging out with Zheng Yansong." I immediately smiled and said, "Zheng Yansong? Who knows?" I went to the office to ask a teacher about homework. I said with a hint of surprise, pulling off an alibi. Liu Jiang chuckled with his belly shaking. "You're pretty clever, huh?" "Ha ha ha, not bad for a top student. Though seriously, just go bow your head and apologize. You're all classmates, no need to be so stubbornly hardcore about it. How about this? I can help you talk to Zheng Yansong." With one hand shoved in my pocket, I said nothing, simply walking straight toward the outside of the school gates. Before long, I spotted the school entrance, where several electric scooters and motorcycles were parked by the roadside, along with 7 or 8 punk-looking guys, standing outside, smoking cigarettes. Liu Jiang patted my shoulder and smiled. "I'm heading out. Catch you later, good luck." Sure enough, the moment Liu Jiang walked away, those few punk kids smoking cigarettes cast their gazes right over toward me. The punks exchanged a knowing smile with each other, and then one of them with dyed yellow hair took the initiative to walk right up to me. "Hey, you get over here for a sec." The surrounding students leaving school together were all startled, hastily distancing themselves and not daring to get close to me. The yellow-haired punk puffed on his cigarette, while throwing an arm around my shoulder and saying, "You're that transfer student from class 4 senior year, right?" I raised my eyebrows slightly, sizing this group of people up, and realized they were actually just those delinquent dropout kids from back in the day, barely a few years older than myself, riding those crappy electric scooters and beat-up motorcycles to block people at the school gates. At this moment, I couldn't help laughing out loud, pursing my lips as I said, "Yep, are you guys the ones Zheng Yansong called over?" The yellow-haired punk shook his head with a smirk and said, Come. We've got some things to talk about with you." To be honest, if an ordinary high school student ran into this kind of situation, they really would be terrified, especially with these guys having dyed hair tattoos and smoking cigarettes. With 2 of them even holding water pipes and iron bars, it's genuinely scary enough. But for someone like me who was reborn, it felt kind of comical. So I smiled and said, "Are you guys seriously the only ones? I thought you called a whole army." The yellow-haired punk sneered and said, "Da Zhuang. He's saying we don't have enough people." The surrounding punks aggressively chimed in, "Who the hell do you think you are? What are you acting so badass for? Are the few of us not enough?" Right as those words dropped, Sunfei's cousin walked out of the bus station while muttering, "Is it over there? Let's go. At that moment, a massive wave of delinquent youths waiting at the station swarmed forward in a grand imposing procession toward the direction where I and the few punks were standing, surrounding us and startling the surrounding students, as well as parents who had come to pick up their kids so badly that they hurriedly pulled their children behind them. Even the security guards at the school gates were completely baffled, trembling slightly as they pulled out their phones to call the school leadership. Suddenly, the few punks called over by Zheng Yansong completely lost their minds. "Brother Liu, aren't there just a few of us here? Are a bunch of bratty kids really worth calling so many of our people over for?" They thought it was some massive conflict, only for it to turn out to be a few non-studying brats blocking people at the school gates. Brother Liu had seen my photo beforehand, so he immediately smiled and said, "Yifei right. Just these few punks?" Having also seen the photo sent by Sunfei's cousin earlier. I then replied, "I honestly didn't expect there to only be a few of them either. I thought there would be at least 10 or 20 people, claiming they were gonna beat me up. That guy went and purposefully found a teacher about homework, so he's not here right now. You guys just handle it however you see fit. Anyway, both sides are outsiders to the school. If anyone asks, just say it was a misunderstanding." Brother Liu chuckled and said, "Got it. You go on home first." Right then and there, they surrounded those punk brats. "Who told you guys to come here, huh? Move it, don't block the school gates. Let's head over there to talk." Shortly after, dozens of people grabbed those few punks and dragged them off to the side to educate them. At this time, the school's disciplinary director, Liu Xiaoping, ran hurriedly over to the school gates and found that nobody was outside anymore. "Wait, what's going on? Didn't someone just say people were fighting outside the school gates?" The school security guard swallowed hard and said, "Right. It looked like a student got dragged over. And then just as I wanted to check what was going on, suddenly another huge crowd of people rushed out and dragged those punk kids who looked like they don't study. Away it looked like they headed left." Disciplinary director Liu Xiaoping drew in a sharp breath of cold air and asked, "Were any students from our school beaten up?" The security guard shook his head. "Probably not." Afterwards, that student seemed to have just walked away. Hearing this, disciplinary director Liu Xiaoping finally let out a sigh of relief. He immediately sent a message in the group chat for all number 2 high homeroom teachers. "Attention all class 4 homeroom teachers at number 2 high. There were outsiders lingering and fighting at the school gates. Check with your classes to see if anyone knows anything, and find out if any student got beaten up. If so, notify me immediately." Immediately, all homeroom teachers across the entire number 2 high began privately messaging the students in their respective chats to inquire about the situation. That same night during evening self-study, the atmosphere in class 4 senior year totally blew up. Someone hiding by the school gates had snapped photos of me being dragged away by the yellow-haired guy, followed by a massive mob of people rushing out and ultimately scaring that group of punks half to death. That is seriously so badass. I honestly thought Lin Yufei was completely done for back then. But who would have guessed he was actually the big boss all along, calling in dozens of people. And they were all full-grown adults. All the classmates were excitedly discussing the matter, looking at me with sudden intense admiration. Everyone already knew Jung Yensong was a badass. After all, back in his sophomore year, he had called people over to the school gates to get into a fight with guys from other classes. Who could have possibly imagined that the top student who transferred over from number 1 high was even more insane? Shen Qinyu let out a sigh, wrote a note, and tossed it over to Jung Yensong. After reading it, Jung Yensong was so furious he straight up smashed his books. That same night during self-study, Jung Yansong was called into the teacher's office, where he was made to stand in punishment and write a self-criticism. Meanwhile, among the students in the study hall, someone suddenly shouted, "Hey, check this out. That novel by the guy who dropped out and transferred from number 1 high just got posted here on the number 2 high forum. Wait, this ID looks so familiar." He said he transferred from number 1 high to number 2 high. So from now on, he'll be updating it on the number 2 high forum. In an instant, a whole bunch of girls got super hyped. Jiang Shiki widened her eyes in disbelief, turned her head to look at Wen Mengqi sitting in the back, and quietly asked, "The author of that novel said they transferred to number 2 high from number 1 high." She then subconsciously glanced over at Wen Mengqi's empty seat next to her, originally thinking the other girl would be completely shocked. She never expected Wen Mengqi to just nod instead. Jiang Shuqi blurted out in utter shock, "It's really Lin Yufei." As those words dropped inside the classroom, everyone subconsciously looked over and instantly erupted into an uproar. Did Lin Yufei really write this? OMG, didn't they say it was written by a classmate of his? Wait a minute. Isn't he the only transfer student who came from number 1 high? Shen Qinyue chimed in. Then it definitely has to be him. Shen Qinyue and Wen Mengqi exchanged glances, as if confirming something with each other. However, right at this moment, Xu Jiaying suddenly ran over to Shen Qinyu's side and whispered, "What should we do? Should we go apologize?" Even Zheng Yansong got shut down. "Is Lin Yufei going to get people to beat us up?" Shen Qinyu sighed and replied, "Probably not. Still, you should definitely apologize. Write an apology letter. That's a few hundred words long." Xu Jiaying immediately nodded, hurriedly pulled out an assignment notebook, tore out a sheet of paper, and started writing an apology letter. After the first period of evening self-study ended, Xu Jiaying nervously came up to Wen Mengqi, stammering, "Sorry about what I said about you today." Finishing her sentence, she handed the apology letter over. Shen Xinyu also said with a serious expression, "Me too. I'm sorry, but I've already made up my mind." Hearing this, Xu Jiaying froze, and Wen Mengqi also blankly raised her head to look at the other girl. Shen Qinyue mustered up her courage and smiled. "Let's compete fairly and see who can win Lin Yifei over, okay?" Jiang Shiqi's jaw dropped wide open, staring at the two of them looking completely petrified. Wen Mengqi was also dumbfounded. She honestly had never imagined that a guy like me would ever like someone like her. Suddenly, she felt a dizzy spaceship-like sensation. The next day when I returned to school, walking down the campus pathway already made me a total celebrity. Students along the way were whispering among themselves and occasionally casting glances in my direction. Yet nobody actually dared to proactively greet me. When I arrived at the school cafeteria, I happened to run into my classmate Liu Ziyang. Liu Jiang awkwardly swallowed hard. Yi Fei, I'm really sorry about that. I actually wasn't that close with Jung Yensong either. Seriously, I tried to talk him out of it yesterday, but he wouldn't listen. Liu Ziyang had heard the rumors. Yesterday, the people Jung Yensong called over not only failed to teach me a lesson, but ended up getting schooled by others instead. I amusedly replied, "That's not what you were saying yesterday, though." After that, he kept acting all buddy-buddy, calling me Brother Fei left and right by my side, and periodically complimenting how great the novel I wrote was. Like in that spaceship part, are there any tormenting sorcerers or dark swamp monsters in there? I thought to myself, this guy is seriously a talent. What kind of random isekai soul are even these terms? I couldn't be bothered to entertain him. Returning to the classroom, I was instantly surrounded by my classmates. Fine, I'll just come clean all right. The novel was written by me, I said with a laugh, and then walked back to my seat. As soon as I sat down, I was surprised to find that there was actually a serving of stir-fried rice noodles and a bottle of pure milk sitting on my desk. I poked Jiang Shiki in front of me with my finger. "Who left this here?" Jiang Shiki glanced over at the empty seat of the hall. "English class representative? She probably bought it for you." Right at that moment, Wen Menqi also came back into the classroom, carrying a bag of breakfast and a few textbooks. As soon as she sat down, I handed the stir-fried rice noodles and milk straight into Wen Menqi's hands and swapped the rice noodles she had bought back over. I smiled and said, "Let's trade and eat." Wen Menqi frowned and asked why. I explained with a deadpan serious look, "I want to eat yours. The one you bought smells better." Wen Menqi froze for a second, though she had no idea why the one she bought would smell better. She just let out an "oh" and went along with it. It was just stir-fried rice noodles either way, so it didn't really matter. And drink the milk, don't waste it. Come on, take a sip. Afterwards, I took the milk and personally fed it right to Wen Menqi's mouth. She gave me a weird, perplexed look, then suddenly had an epiphany and blurted out, "You're trying not to pay me back." After a moment of contemplation, she finally arrived at a conclusion, which was that this desk mate of hers wanted to swallow all her life savings whole. Otherwise, why else would he be so overly nice early in the morning? With a chuckle, I finally smiled and said, am I really that kind of person? I admit I'm no saint, but even if I ripped anyone off, I wouldn't rip you off. Don't worry, I'll pay the money back. Just not right now. Wen Menqi said with a wronged expression, "That was all my New Year's money. My living expenses for the month were in there too. How about this for the foreseeable future? I'll cover all your food, drinks, and daily expenses, okay? And then I'll pay you back with interest when the time comes." Wen Menqi frowned and muttered, "For real? If we're doing that from now on, you'll swipe your meal card for me. And how about this? I'll set you up with a family card on WeChat Pay and drop a bit of allowance in there. Is 3,000 a month enough?" Wen Menqi shook her head. "That's way too much. 600 is plenty." I gave her a look and said, "No way. You have to spend at least 1,000 a month. If you don't spend it all, that's a failing grade. Girls should learn how to spend money." "Classmate Wen, you're way too thrifty and frugal." As soon as I finished speaking, I went ahead and added a family card to Wen Menqi's WeChat account, setting the spending limit to 1,000 a month. Wen Menqi blankly went "oh" and said, "I'll give it a try then." At this moment, I was genuinely about to die laughing from this little rich girl. Shortly after, our homeroom teacher Liang Yuting called both Zheng Yansong and me outside. The other students were all secretly using their peripheral vision to peek out at the hallway by the back door of the classroom. At this moment, homeroom teacher Liang Yuting wore a stern face. You both know why I called the two of you out here, right?" I smiled and said, "Teacher, I really didn't get into a fight. Yesterday was my cousin's birthday. If you don't believe me, ask Zheng Yansong. Zheng Yansong and I are tight like sworn brothers. How could we possibly fight?" Zheng Yansong was left completely dumbfounded, his mind entirely blank. Sworn brothers. Homeroom teacher Liang Yuting glanced over at Zheng Yansong and demanded, "You tell me." Zheng Yansong's mouth opened slightly, and after holding it in for ages, the only word he managed to squeeze out was, "Yeah." Liang Yuting was so exasperated she almost lost it. "Oh, sworn brothers, is that it? All right then. Should I arrange for the two of you to sit together?" As those words dropped, the two of us practically replied in unison, "No way, absolutely not." Liang Yuting crossed her arms and said helplessly, "Weren't you guys sworn brothers? How come you're suddenly unwilling?" I smiled and said, "Mainly because I'm afraid it'll affect our studies. If we sit together in class, we'll definitely end up chatting all the time." Liang Yuting took a look and noticed that I looked like anything but someone who had just gotten beaten up. As for Zheng Yensong, needless to say, this kid reportedly hung out at the math teacher's office yesterday, refusing to leave, and stubbornly plowed through an entire exam paper. He definitely wasn't beaten up either. All right, then I won't notify your parents about this for now. However, Lin Yifei and you, Zheng Yensong, if I hear again that the two of you got into a conflict, or worse, went and called people from outside the school over, don't bother explaining anything to me when that happens. Go straight to the disciplinary office and explain it to the director, understand? I smiled and replied, understood. Oh, teacher, that English speaking competition you mentioned last time, I want to participate. Homeroom teacher Liang Yuting took a deep breath, waved her hand at Zheng Yansong and said, "Go back to morning study first." Shortly after, homeroom teacher Liang Yuting pulled me aside and questioned me. "Tell me honestly, does Zheng Yansong usually target you in class? Did he force you not to tell the teachers, right?" Following that, I reported the situation at the school gates back to the teacher, like some kind of a dark swamp assassin. Hearing that, homeroom teacher Liang Yuting was instantly dumbfounded. And they're still sworn brothers after all that. Before heading back to the classroom, I even remembered to instruct the teacher on how to report the matter to the school leadership. Just say that those people yesterday came to celebrate my cousin's birthday and just happened to pass by the school gates. Homeroom teacher Liang Yuting was instantly amused by me. Then I casually added, "Teacher, you look really pretty when you smile." Homeroom teacher Liang Yuting, how could she possibly handle this kid's smooth talk? She immediately gave me a light kick and said, "Get lost. Go back to morning study. Honestly, every day with you." Clearly, my sugar-coated artillery shells still managed to pacify the teacher, so she didn't continue pursuing the matter between the two of us. At this moment, homeroom teacher Liang Yuting stood up on the podium and announced, "Tomorrow is the four-school joint examination. I'll be handing out the exam permits this afternoon. Everyone keep them safe." Also, regarding that English-speaking competition, currently only 3 people have signed up with me. That means we won't need any screening process. Lin Yifei, Shen Xinyue, and Zhang Shiki. The 3 of you can prepare yourselves beforehand. Oh, right, for the New Year's cultural performance, every class needs at least 2 programs. Anyone with performance arrangements, please register with the cultural committee member. Meanwhile, over at Number 1 High's classroom, it was an absolute uproar. Did you guys hear a while ago? That novel that used to update at Number 1 High is now updating on the Number 2 High forum. I heard it was written by a transfer student. I asked someone from Number 2 High, and they said there's apparently only one senior transfer student. Could it be written by Lin Yifei? Suddenly, all the chatter abruptly cut off, because Vice Principal Guo Haibo was standing right at the back door of the class. After hearing what everyone was discussing, he frowned and spoke up, "That novel on the Number 2 High forum. Who posted it over there at Number 2 High?" Everyone in the class was instantly struck dumb, looking at each other in blank silence. Vice Principal Guo Haibo wore a stern face and demanded, "Where's the class monitor?" At that moment, class monitor Chen Zhijie stood up, and with a bitter expression said, "Principal, I have no idea either. I don't even know who wrote it." Vice Principal Guo Haibo asked back in surprise, "You don't know? Then how come someone told me it was written by a student in your class?" As soon as those words dropped, everyone exploded into a frenzy. Could it really be Lin Yifei? Class monitor Chen Zhijie rubbed his head and said, "Principal, that novel updated over at Number 2 High, and it even said they transferred over from Number 1 High. If it's someone from our class, then it pretty much has to be Lin Yifei." Vice Principal Guo Haibo paused for a second. "Your homeroom teacher told me that he tracked down that student and had them halt the novel to avoid affecting their college entrance exam scores." Everyone shook their heads one after another. Right at that moment, Sunfei suddenly stood up and said, "Principal, it really was written by Lin Yifei, because back then, I heard that a leader from the Education Bureau praised his novel. So I asked about it. But afterwards, the homeroom teacher told us to drop it, and then nothing more came of it." Vice Principal Guo Haibo's expression instantly darkened. Wearing a stony face, he said, "I get it, you guys continue with morning study." With that, he walked out of the classroom. As soon as the vice principal's footsteps faded away, the classroom of Class 2 senior year instantly erupted into an excited frenzy. A large group of people surrounded Sunfei. It was really written by Lin Yifei. Meanwhile, homeroom teacher Song Wenbo was organizing test papers in the office. Suddenly, Vice Principal Guo Haibo walked in. The teachers in the office all raised their heads one after another. Go Haibo stood at the office doorway, speaking with an extremely terrible mood. Homeroom teacher for class 2. Step outside for a moment. Following that, the two of them came to the office doorway to communicate privately. What? You're saying that novel updated on the number 2 high forum. Song Wenbo instantly shuddered all over, breaking out in a cold sweat. He originally thought that by getting my account banned, there would be no way to continue updating. Who could have possibly imagined that this kid would go straight over to the number 2 high forum to update? Vice Principal Go Haibo wore a stony face and said, "Didn't you tell me at the beginning that you communicated with the students' parents and that it stopped updating because it was affecting their studies? How come the people in your class are saying it was written by that student who dropped out?" Song Wenbo gave an awkward smile and said, "Well, I also..." Go Haibo couldn't help cursing out. Song Wenbo, don't think I don't know that you did this on purpose. You didn't dare say it was written by that student who dropped out after a fight with you, right? What on earth are you afraid of? So what if it's explicitly stated that he wrote the novel? Wouldn't it have been fine if you just said it out straight? Now, look at how difficult of a spot you've put me in. How am I supposed to explain this? I even specially told the leaders at the Education Bureau that he was prioritizing his studies, which is why it was temporarily not being updated. In a few days, the leaders from the Education Bureau are coming to number 2 high to observe classes. Do you not realize what period of time this is? Number 1 high, number 2 high, experimental high, and Huashi are all competing for this provincial level key demonstration school quota. We absolutely cannot let the leaders get any sort of bad impression of us. Think of a way to make the student take down the novel immediately, or else have him come back and update it on the number 1 high forum. Song Wenbo's mouth opened slightly, leaving him completely dumbfounded. Vice Principal Go Haibo said with a stern expression, "Song Wenbo, I remember you're also applying for senior teacher rank this year, right? If number 1 high becomes a laughingstock because of this matter, you should know how severe the consequences are. Hurry up. While not many people know about this yet, handle it properly right now. Either have him come back and update on the number 1 high forum, or else make him stop updating altogether. Otherwise, isn't this just humiliating? You might as well have just claimed from the start that it was written by an outsider." Song Wenbo gritted his teeth and said, "Understood. This matter is my fault. Rest assured, Principal, I definitely won't let number 1 high lose face on my watch." Only then did Vice Principal Go Haibo nod in satisfaction, keeping his hands behind his back as he turned and walked away. During the 3rd period, shortly after homeroom teacher Song, Wenbo spoke up to the students below. "All right, before class starts today, I want to mention something. Which of you is relatively close with Lin Yifei?" The students below instantly looked at each other in blank silence. Finally, Sun Fei raised his hand and said, "Teacher, I'm all right with him." Someone else quietly muttered, "Chen Xiru." Song Wenbo glanced over and said, "Right. Chen Xiru, aren't you relatively close with Lin Yifei? Could you help me ask him, why did his novel suddenly stop updating at number 1 high? Can you ask him to come back and update on the number 1 high forum, instead of writing it on the number 2 high forum?" Chensiru hesitatingly replied, "Teacher, but he's studying at number 2 high now, right? Isn't it completely normal for him to update at number 2 high? Why should he come back to number 1 high?" Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo said, "Just try persuading him. You can just say that all the classmates love reading it. Aren't you guys friends? Writing it anywhere is writing it after all. Anyway, since writing this or that is the same, while I was studying hard in class, I suddenly received a message from Sun Fei. We've got a show to watch. The principal came to our class today asking about your novel. So the homeroom teacher had Chensiru reach out to you and ask you to come back and update at number 1 high." With a chuckle, I replied I already deleted Chensiru. No wonder Chensiru looked all hesitant when I saw her. Guess she was too embarrassed to say she got deleted by you. Ha ha ha, too funny. Sure enough, not long after I received a friend request. Chensiru has requested to add you as a friend. Without even thinking, I directly rejected it, and even purposefully turned my head back to smile at the little rich girl, Wen Mengqi, sitting beside me. "Classmate Wen, don't forget you're treating me to the movies this Saturday," Wen Mengqi explained with a wronged expression. "I'm completely out of money." I burst out laughing so hard my stomach hurt. She is honestly just too adorably clueless. I'll treat all right." Wen Mengqi suddenly shook her head. "No. Don't I have that family card? I promised I'd treat you using my own money." Wen Mengqi blankly paused for a moment, her brain seemingly struggling to process it. After more than 10 minutes of class had passed, The little rich girl, Wen Menqi, suddenly muttered to herself, "Wait, that's not right. Swiping the family card doesn't really count as me treating you, unless I spend separate money to buy the tickets." I slumped over my desk and grinned from ear to ear. The little rich girl, Wen Mengqi, is genuinely too cute. Oh, Lin Yifei, what are you laughing at? At this moment, the chemistry teacher on the podium couldn't help calling me out publicly. That's when I remembered we were still in class. So I immediately stood up and said, "Teacher, I just thought of something happy." At this moment, Wen Mengqi's face was completely red. Knowing I was laughing at her, she hurriedly buried her head down. "Teacher, it's because I was working on a chemistry problem that had 2Na plus Cl2, and I was wondering if I'd discovered some secret." As soon as those words dropped, the whole class burst into laughter. Afterwards, the chemistry teacher criticized, "Pay close attention in class from now on. Extracurricular problems should be done during your free time." Finally, lunchtime arrived. As soon as class ended, Shenxin Yue ran over to my desk and asked, "Did you really reject her friend request?" I paused for a second, then immediately realized Chen Xiru went to you. Shenxin Yu clicked her tongue and said, "You're so cold-hearted. She said she has something to talk to you about, just add her." Coldly, I replied, "No need. Let's go, classmate Wen time to grab lunch." The little rich girl, Wen Menqi, went, "Oh," and followed right behind me. Shenxin Yue was left completely dumbfounded for a moment, because this was the first time she had ever been directly ignored like that. Xu Jiaying walked over from the side and said, "Let's go. Stop watching. Maybe he just likes that type." At this moment, while waiting in line at the cafeteria, I was busy pondering what to eat, when I suddenly noticed the little rich girl, Wen Mengqi's big, watery eyes, staring right at me. What's wrong? Nobody's bullying you." I cast a Xiaobu the look at Jiang Shiki beside us, and asked, "Why is she suddenly like this?" Jiang Shiki shook her head. Suddenly, Wen Mengqi asked with a soft, troubled voice, "That ex-girlfriend of yours, from number 1 high, is she really pretty?" I burst out laughing and said, "Oh, are you jealous?" Wen Mengqi bit her lower lip without saying a word, her gaze staring at me with a wronged expression. Afterwards, the three of them found a corner table, eating and chatting away. Oh, right, are you signing up for the cultural performance?" Wen Mengqi also curiously glanced over at me. I was silent for a few seconds before saying I could sign up, or I could not. Suddenly, Jiang Shiki spoke up to me. "Let me tell you a secret. Wen Mengqi won first prize in last year's cultural performance." When those words dropped, I looked somewhat surprised. Wen Mengqi instantly shook her head shyly, signaling Jiang Shiki to stop talking. Jiang Shiki laughed and said, "What's there to be scared of? This is your advantage." And with that, she spilled Wen Mengqi's secret about being a piano specialty student to me. After finishing lunch and chatting a bit more about the cultural performance, I smiled and said, "Then I'll voluntarily sign up." Meanwhile, Chensuru arrived at the teacher's office. "Teacher, I'm sorry Lin Yifei deleted me as a friend. I added him and he won't even reply to me. Why don't you call him and talk to him yourself?" Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo was left dumbfounded. "You guys are classmates. It should be easier for him to talk to you than to me. Isn't he close with you?" Chensuru blushed and said in a soft voice, "Teacher, that was in the past." Song Wenbo tried earnestly to persuade her. "I'm telling you, boys are actually really easy to coax. Just go over and say a few nice words. How about you see if this works? You treat him to a meal and I'll pay the bill. After all, I do bear some responsibility for Lin Yifei dropping out. Things really weren't handled well at the start." Chensuru replied with a wronged expression. "A teacher, then why aren't you willing to call Lin Yifei? Why don't you just talk to him yourself?" Teacher Song Wenbo instantly froze, his mouth opened slightly, wanting to say something but unable to get it out. Chensuru suddenly mustered up her courage and said, "Teacher, you wouldn't be too proud to lose face, would you?" Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo's face instantly darkened. "What kind of nonsense are you talking about? You can go back to class now." Chensuru immediately responded, "All right, then I'm heading back." However, the moment the student left the office, homeroom teacher Song Wenbo immediately regretted it. Patting his head in dismay, Song Wenbo gritted his teeth, and finally pulled up the student directory on his computer, staring at a string of phone numbers. He just couldn't bring himself to press the dial button. Left with no choice, he had to call my deskmate Sun Fei over. Sun Fei arrived at the office and stood there upright. Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo squeezed out a smile and said, "Weren't you deskmates with Lin Yifei before? Your relationship with him should be pretty good too. Do you think you could talk to him about this? Could he stop writing that novel on the number 2 high form and come back to update it at number 1 high instead? Or else, could we wait until after the college entrance exams to write it?" Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo smiled ingratiatingly. I'm mainly just worried that this will affect his studies. Sunfei asked knowingly, teacher, he already transferred schools. Are you still worrying about his grades? Besides coming back to update on the number one high forum, would affect his studies just the same, wouldn't it? Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo cleared his throat awkwardly and continued, that's definitely different. Just tell me whether you can help your teacher. Communicate with Lin Yifei or not? Sunfei pursed his lips and said, teacher, I can accept. Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo's eyes instantly lit up. Accept what, speak? Sunfei purposely scratched his head and said, I actually still owe him money, so I'm too embarrassed to reach out to him proactively. Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo waved his hand and said, oh, is that all? What's the big deal about that? How much do you owe him? Teacher will pay it for you. Sunfei asked in disbelief, really? Song Wenbo thought to himself, this concerns the dignity of number one high, and furthermore involves his own qualification to apply for senior teacher rank. With that realization, he generously said, of course. Besides, isn't the teacher asking a favor of you? How much is it? Sunfei lowered his head and rubbed his nose, saying, it's actually not that much, just 400 yuan. Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo gritted his teeth. Fine. Teacher will cover this 400 yuan for you. Just talk to Lin Yifei and make sure I'm saying ideally, we should wait until after the college entrance exams are over to write this novel. Even though he's transferred now, as a teacher, I'm still worried he might mess up his college entrance exams. After all, this involves an important stage in his life's development. Sunfei held back a smile. Teacher, I can do it, but I can't guarantee success. You know what, forget it. I'll just wait until I have money to pay him back myself. Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo immediately pulled out his phone with a generous sweep, saying, come on, let me scan the QR code. As long as you help teacher persuade him, teacher won't make you pay this money back. But you've got to persuade him sincerely. Seriously, this affects his studies way too much. Sunfei grinned broadly and said, teacher, you really don't need to pay me back. Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo said, no need. Teacher keeps his word. All right then, I'll give it a try. And just like that, he actually transferred 400 yuan over. Teacher, then I'll head back to class first. I'll let you know once Lin Yifei replies to me. Then head back first. The moment Sunfei stepped out of the office, he immediately sent me a message. Ha 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 ha. Absolute massive W. You probably won't believe this, but Song Wenbo gave me 400 yuan to persuade you not to write that novel anymore. It seemed homeroom teacher Song Wenbo was really getting desperate. The corners of my mouth curled up slightly, and I muttered to myself, I've got to drop a chapter tonight to celebrate. Returning home that night, everyone was busy reviewing to prepare for tomorrow's four-school joint examination. Meanwhile, I was busy researching how to register an e-commerce shop. I remembered that in a few years, online shopping and e-commerce would usher in a massive wave. Opening an online store now might not count as taking the absolute first bite of the pie, but it would still be the second or third bite. At least I'd be entering the market before the online shopping boom made its full impact on the physical economy. As for choosing a niche, I wasn't planning on building a long-term brand, but rather hoping to make a quick killing in the short term. So I picked a very obscure industry that was also overlooked by quite a few people, selling novelty monster lingerie. However, since I was still a student right now, this whole affair had to be kept low profile. Fortunately, I had just turned 18 last month, which meant I met the ID card requirements for opening a store. Suddenly, Sunfei sent a message. What the hell? Lin Yifei, did your account get hacked? Ha ha ha, no, I'm planning to open a store selling this stuff. Dude, you definitely got hacked, because in Sunfei's impression, I was a true blue, die-hard straight guy through and through. Plus a science prodigy. No matter how you looked at it, there was no way he could ever imagine that I would be the one sending him pictures of monster lingerie. The most absurd part was that I actually claimed I was going to sell them, mainly because I honestly still didn't have many friends I was super close with, so I just casually sent the monster lingerie photos over to have Sunfei help me pick out some items. It wasn't until 10:30 at night that I finally finished tweaking the samples and uploaded all the product photos. Afterwards, I knocked out a practice test and dozed off. Early the next morning, I arrived at the classroom. Not long after the proctor also arrived. Suddenly, Liu Jiang spoke up to me. Oh, right. Brother Fei, how's your Chinese? Pretty decent, I guess. If nothing goes wrong, probably top of the grade. Liu Jiang gave a thumbs up and said, awesome. However, as soon as those words left his mouth, a familiar voice suddenly rang out. Top of the grade. Just make sure I don't catch you cheating. I looked up and was instantly stunned. The proctor turned out to be number one high's director of student affairs, Liu Qiang. That was when I remembered the four-school joint examination apparently used cross-proctoring with teachers from all 4 schools. All right, now, put away all your books and review materials right now. If I catch anyone bringing cheat sheets, plagiarizing, or cheating later on, I'm confiscating your test paper on the spot. I don't know how things are at number 2 high, but cheating at number 1 high means your parents get notified. After finishing, Liu Chang didn't forget to shoot me a sidelong glance. As soon as I got the test paper, I immediately started writing away. In the blink of an eye, over an hour passed. Teacher, can I turn in my paper early? I smiled slightly and raised my hand to ask. I glanced at the wall clock in the classroom. There were still 45 minutes left before the end. There was no need to keep wasting time here. Then the number 2 high teacher Liu Chang said, "It's still early. Everyone remember, turning in papers is not allowed during the last 30 minutes of the exam." Yet I still ended up timing it right at the 30-minute mark and handed in my paper early. Number 1 High's Director of Student Affairs, Liu Chang, submitted the exam paper early. Liu Chang, the head of discipline at number 1 High, collected the test paper and even pulled me outside alone to chat. Liu Chang frowned and asked, "In that novel on the number 2 High forum, was that written by you? I never heard you had a talent like that. Why didn't you show it off before?" I smiled slightly and said, "Director, I heard the leaders at the Education Bureau even praised me. Remember to tell the leaders I'm at number 2 High now." Liu Chang's face instantly sank. Getting praised a few times and now you're getting cocky, huh? I'm telling you, the main focus for the college entrance exams is still your studies. Messing around with pointless nonsense all day long is simply a waste of time. Then I slowly replied, right. Everything the director says is right. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll head off first. Just in time to go back and write a couple of chapters of my novel. Who knows, the leaders from the Education Bureau might still be waiting for my update. Liu Chang was so furious he was ready to explode, as I had deliberately poked right at his sore spot. After watching me leave, he immediately pulled out his phone and sent a message to number 1 High's homeroom teacher Song Wenbo. "I'm going to be ticked off to death by this student of yours, writing some trashy novel and thinking he's all that. You better hurry up and handle this." Song Wenbo replied, "Director, I've been thinking, since persuading him to take it down didn't work, why don't we hold a literary competition right here at school? With so many students at number 1 High, there's no way none of them can outperform him right. When someone who writes better than him shows up, won't this issue resolve itself?" Liu Chang's eyes lit up. "That's a brilliant idea. I'll suggest it to the principal later." And sure enough, number 1 High's execution was indeed prompt. As soon as the Chinese exam ended, each homeroom teacher had already sent out the notice. Submissions would be accepted in the form of web novels, and in the end they would select a gold prize, silver prize, and bronze prize, with the principal personally presenting the medals. Outstanding works would even be included in the school library's collection. Because the event covered both first and second year students, quite a few students actively responded, one after another, starting to create and post on the school forum. Several students immediately began writing novels right on the spot. "Did you hear number 1 High is going to hold some kind of literary competition?" Zhang Shiki, who was currently eating, paused for a moment and subconsciously glanced over at me sitting next to Wen Menqi. "I heard about it too. Ha ha ha, super interesting." Afterwards, the few of them chatted a bit about how the exam went. "You guys might want to prepare ahead of time regarding essays on environmental management. I have a feeling there's a very high probability it will show up since the news has been frequently mentioning environmental management lately, along with things like waste recycling and the like." Jiang Shiki couldn't help praising, "Wow, you're so amazing. No wonder you're a top student. So, can people from number 1 High predict exam questions in advance too?" Wen Mingqi pulled out her phone while eating. I joked with a smile, "My predictions are just more accurate. Hard to say about anyone else." "Oh right, classmate Wen, don't forget you promised to take me to the movies tomorrow. Don't stand me up, okay?" In the afternoon, they tested on comprehensive sciences and English. As the bell rang, the proctors began collecting the test papers. Everyone stood up one after another and stretched, exhausted after testing all day. Back in the classroom, Jiang Shiki looked at me with sparkling eyes, acting like a total fangirl. Moreover, several girls next to her shouted out, "Oh, he's back. Yi Fei, your English essay really was about environmental protection. I didn't expect you to actually predict it right." I pursed my lips and said, "Just pure luck." At that moment, when Mengqi also returned to the classroom, happily telling Jiang Shiki how easy her English essay felt to write. Right at that moment, the English teacher acting as homeroom teacher also returned to the classroom. Liang Yuting stood on the podium and said, "I won't be handing out English practice papers this weekend. Instead, I have an announcement to make. I don't know if you guys have heard, but number one high is holding a literary creation contest. As soon as she said that, many students in the class turned their heads to look back at the students sitting in the rear, deliberately turned around to take a look at the one sitting in the back row. Our school won't be doing this literary creation contest. We're doing something else. With just over 100 days left until the college entrance exams, our school has prepared a study group initiative, 4 people per group. We will try our best to directly select 4 students who excel in different subjects, so everyone can help each other study and teach what they're best at to the other students. However, right at that moment, I raised my hand and said, "Teacher, actually, I have an idea. The study group model is actually already implemented by many schools, but the results are often less than ideal. I suggest modifying this private group system. Let's change it to groups with flexible numbers of people and implement student-led teaching. Listen to whatever lectures you feel are useful to you. That way everyone can leverage their strengths and advantages, consolidating their own knowledge while teaching others. Meanwhile, students who have weak spots can also choose more elite mini-teachers instead of being restricted to teachers within their own group." As soon as those words dropped, many students nodded in agreement, as expected of a top student hitting the nail right on the head. Friday after school was filled with joyful laughter and chatter, as the arrival of the weekend clearly put everyone in a pretty good mood. But what happened next actually surprised me a bit. Who would have thought that the little rich girl, Wen Menki, would actually take the public bus home? No wonder classmates were completely clueless after graduation. Nobody knew her family was actually that loaded. In the blink of an eye, Saturday morning arrived. At 2:00 p.m., I met up with Wen Menki at Wanda Plaza as agreed. I had made plenty of preparations for this date. Not only did I buy 2 cups of milk tea, I also bought a delicate little bracelet as a gift. After a little while, I spotted a familiar figure appearing in the distance. The little rich girl, Wen Menki, was wearing a white dress and holding a small white handbag, standing at 1.63 meters tall and wearing little high heels. Her overall look gave off a very classy vibe. Even though she was still barefaced, hadn't learned how to use makeup yet, and still wore her glasses. You could already tell she was destined to be a little beauty. This was the first time I had ever seen what she looked like out of her school uniform. The little rich girl, Wen Menki, said shyly and softly, "Does it look good?" while nervously tweaking her fingers. I burst out laughing and said, "It looks great. What about the milk tea I bought you and the gift I got you?" Wen Menki shook her head. Taking the box, I directly shoved it into her hands and smiled, "Open it up and take a look. If you don't like it, you should be able to exchange it." That was when Wen Menki cautiously opened the box and instantly froze in place. I seized the moment with a smile. "How is it? Let me help you put it on." Wen Menki stood there in a daze, and before she could even react, she realized the bracelet was already fastened around her wrist. Afterwards, I took the initiative to hold Wen Menki's hand and walked into the mall. It was clearly Wen Menki's first time holding hands with a boy. She wanted to struggle out of it out of shyness. But in the end, she was still held firmly by me, left with no choice but to lower her head and obediently follow behind me, as she was led along, all the way up to the 4th floor of the mall. Probably because it was the weekend, there were quite a lot of people at the movie theater. "Wait here for a second. I'll go get the tickets." "Oh, right, do you want to buy some popcorn?" After asking, I realized it was a stupid question, because the little rich girl, Wen Mengqi, was already staring straight at a nearby kid's popcorn, with drool coming down. However, right at that moment, a familiar voice rang out. Lin Yifei?" Sun Fei shouted excitedly, "Why are you here too?" I turned around and looked, only to discover that Sun Fei and 2 other number 1 high classmates were actually standing right behind me. After chatting for a bit while in line, I grabbed the popcorn and orange juice and found the little rich girl, Wen Mengqi, then smiled and said, "Let's go." Tickets were being checked. The moment she saw my number 1 high classmates, Wen Mengqi was instantly so scared she froze, shyly burying her head away for fear of being seen by others. Watching her adorably dazed look almost made me die of laughter. To be honest, although the little rich girl, Wen Mengqi, doesn't know how to do makeup right now, her bare face isn't bad at all. It's just that due to her personality, she was simply unpopular in her school class. At this moment, Sun Fei and the others started hooting and hollering upon seeing this. Wang Songtao even intentionally sneaked a photo and posted it in their class group chat. The class chat instantly became super lively. Lin Yifei is such a trashy player. Didn't he like Chen Siru? How is he out watching movies with other girls? Suddenly, someone tagged Chen Siru and sent a message. He used to like... How did he change his mind after transferring schools? Chen Siru didn't say anything. just gritted her teeth and sent the photo to Shen Xinyu. Oh my god, where did you take this? It was taken by a guy in our class who ran into them at the movie theater. To be honest with you, that girl is the type who gets laughed at in our class. I can't even believe Lin Yifei would take a fancy to her. Then Shen Xinyu endlessly spilled everything about me and Wen Mengqi to Chen Xiro. At this moment, the little rich girl, Wen Mengqi, and I were sitting in the corner of the movie theater. I leaned close to her ear and asked in a low voice, "Is this your first time coming out to watch a movie with a guy?" Wen Mengqi blankly nodded her head, then went back to gnawing on popcorn. "This is so good." I was genuinely amused by her dazed and adorable reaction. "Why hasn't anyone asked you out before? Or did your family not let you?" Wen Mengqi hesitated for a moment, and then her mouth made a gesture answering, "They don't let me." "Then did you sneak out today?" Wen Mengqi nodded like a chick pecking at rice, and even intentionally made a shh gesture. "So are you going home for dinner tonight?" Wen Mengqi was startled. She nodded as if it were a matter of course, then suddenly made a nervous self-defense gesture, covering her chest with both hands and staring at me vigilantly. I straight up laughed my head off. I meant asking if we should eat outside before going back, or go home for dinner. I wasn't asking if you were coming home tonight. When Mengqi only then realized she had seemed to misunderstand. Her earlobes instantly turned slightly red with embarrassment, and she muttered a soft, "Oh, I found this little rich girl way too cute." Still, this was for the best. At least she knows how to protect herself, and won't be easily tricked by guys. The movie let out at 5:30. After parting ways with Wen Mengqi, I didn't go straight home, but instead sent a message to San Fei, arranging to grab a bite together nearby. I said, "The reason I'm looking for you is actually to ask for a favor. Your cousin should still be working as an internet cafe admin, right?" Sun Fei was stunned for a second. "Huh? Are we calling people for a fight again? Who did you offend this time?" I shook my head and said, "It's not a fight. I didn't offend anyone. I want to find some people to buy things on my online store so that the sales volume on my shop can get boosted up afterwards." I explained the revenue, share, and operation details one by one. In the blink of an eye, the weekend break was over. It flew by, and Sun Fei's execution speed was fast too. He immediately got over 30 people involved. I was busy from 3:00 p.m. all the way to 7:00 p.m. So exhausted, my whole head was spinning. Just as I wanted to rest for a bit, I suddenly noticed the class group chat blowing up. It was homeroom teacher Liang Yuting sending a message. "Classmates, because Zheng Yensung's grandmother was hospitalized with a cerebral hemorrhage, and his father was also in a car accident last week. Things are pretty difficult for his family right now. After looking into the situation, I hope everyone can extend a helping hand together to help out teacher Zheng Yansong. Next week, I will go with the class monitor to visit Zheng Yan, Song's grandmother, at the hospital." I was stunned for a moment, then suddenly had a flash of inspiration and thought, give a man a fish versus teach a man to fish. Charity donations probably won't raise much, but helping me do some work can actually earn him a bit of cash. So I asked the homeroom teacher for Zheng Yansong's phone number and called him to understand his family situation, along the way explaining how to make money. After understanding it clearly, the other guy was practically ready to worship me and immediately wanted to go into business together. The next morning was entirely spent going over the 4-school joint exam papers. After finishing lunch, suddenly someone patted me on the shoulder. I looked up and saw Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan standing at the classroom door. Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan said, "The 4-school joint exam results are out. You kid did pretty well. Out of our entire number 2 high, there were only 2 perfect score essays, and you bagged one of them. Plus you got 4th place in Chinese." A light flashed in my eyes. Oh, that's pretty good. What happens if I didn't get 1st place in the whole school? After all, I had been bragging earlier and told the teacher not to worry about me during class. Then Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan said, "Just wait until the scores come out and see." "Oh, right. Are you sure that novel of yours was written by yourself? You didn't plagiarize it, did you?" I nodded, and Luo Wengshuan said, "It's fine. I just wanted to double check, because tomorrow the Education Bureau leaders are coming over for an inspection. Didn't number 1 high set up some kind of literary creation contest? Even though our school didn't, we're also preparing to establish a literature club in the 2nd year to foster students' reading and writing abilities. The principal's idea is to call you directly to attend an open class as a student representative and role model, share some writing insights, talk about how you embarked on this writing path, and so on. By then, the leaders might also drop in to audit this open class. So if you have time tomorrow, you can organize the plot of your novel and excerpt a few paragraphs into your notes. That way your speech will have a bit more persuasiveness." Returning to the classroom, Jiang Shiki curiously looked up and asked, "Teacher, what did he want with you?" I smiled slightly and said, "Nothing much, just telling me I got fourth place in the grade for Chinese." Instantly, surrounding classmates all crowded around in excitement, saying that our school had a total of 2 perfect score essays, and I got one of them. Everyone looked at me with envious eyes. "Oh, right, Lin Yifei. Over the past week, did you check out that literary creation contest?" Laughing so hard I'm dying. They set up a popularity vote ranking, and guess who the #1 spot went to? Classmate Goyanzi couldn't hold back his smile as he explained, "It's you. To be precise, it's your novel that got the highest votes, completely crushing second place. In fact, even if you added second place all the way to 10th place together, it still wouldn't match your vote count." Meanwhile, Narjwan Hai, Vice Principal Guo Haibo in his office, was puffing with anger. He cursed at Song Wenbo over the phone saying, "Look at this yourself. What is going on online right now? Even if you add all of them together, they still don't have as many points as his single score. This is simply too absurd." Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo opened up the internet to take a look, and was also left dumbfounded. The combined rankings of the bottom 9 couldn't even compare to Lin Yifei's vote count. Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo nervously stammered, No, Principal Guo, listen to me. This leaderboard is definitely inaccurate and meaningless. This Lin Yifei dropped out long ago, and doesn't fit our competition rules at all. So this has no reference value," Vice Principal Guo Haibo said sarcastically. Old song, old song. Are you genuinely stupid or just acting like it? Does that even matter? Look at how ridiculous this looks right now. Right now, immediately, I want to see a work that can match Lin Yifei's novel. Then, knock that first place spot right off the board for me. Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo took a deep breath and suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Wait, Principal Guo, I suddenly have an idea. Why don't we have a teacher rate something and then snatch that first place spot back and then snatched away this first place? How do you think about that? Vice Principal Guo Haibo hesitated for a moment and asked in return, "You're having a teacher write it," Song Wenbo said. "Teacher Liu wrote a book before, didn't he? Having him write it definitely won't be a problem." Vice Principal Guo Haibo shook his head and said, "No way. Isn't that just cheating? A teacher winning against a student is completely unjustifiable." Song Wenbo said, "Of course it wouldn't be Teacher Liu writing it personally. He'd just mentor a student in writing it a one-on-one kind of deal." Vice Principal Guo Haibo waved his hand and said, Forget it. There's no need to make a fuss out of this. I reckon the leaders already know about this kid transferring schools. After all, he wrote it himself anyway. Just delete that ranking list and be done with it. Just issue a formal statement afterwards that enrollment is restricted to our own school's students. At this moment, I opened up the #1 High Forum and took a look, then smiled in surprise. No way, it really is gone. Let me see if I can leave a comment. To my surprise, as soon as I edited a line of text and hit send, a prompt popped up saying the post had vanished. Classmate Guo Yanzi beside me froze for a second. No way. Let me see. Holy crap, this post really got deleted. I chuckled and said, getting this post deleted is normal. With my book on there, it definitely doesn't fit the rules. However, right at that moment by the classroom door, someone shouted excitedly, "The 4-school joint exam results have been posted by the stairwell." Quite a few people started walking out toward the hallway. Class is about to start. Soon the teacher will hand out report cards anyway. "What's the rush?" I said. "Right, classmate Wen." I turned my head to look at the little rich girl, Wen Menqi. Menqi also nodded like a little chick pecking at grain, yet still dragged Jiang Shiki along to squeeze through the crowd to check the scores. "You already nodded, why are you still running over there?" I was honestly left speechless and torn between laughter and tears. Finally, the bell rang. Homeroom teacher Liang Yuting slowly said, "Everyone get back. Stop looking. There's only the top 100 in the grade up there. If you can't find your name, you didn't make it into the top 100. Several boys let out a laugh. I knew it, no wonder I couldn't find mine. As everyone returned to the classroom and sat down, homeroom teacher Liang Yuting said on the podium, "I'll call out the names. Come up and get your report cards. Lin Yifei, 136 points first in the class, third in the grade. Shen Xinyu, 136 points. Tied for first in the class, tied for third in the grade." As expected of a #1 high top student, taking first place right off the bat, everyone looked at me with envious gazes. "This is your English report card. Scores for the other subjects will be brought over by the teachers during class. However, as your homeroom teacher, I actually have a surprise. The Chinese grade 1 spot is right here in our class." Everyone grew excited. Jiang Shiki specifically turned around to look at me. I waved both hands and said, "Not me. I'm in 4th place." Yet the very next second, homeroom teacher Liang Yuting smiled and said, "It is you, Lin Yifei." Instantly, every single classmate turned to look at me. Didn't he just say he was fourth? Several classmates had heard my words earlier. At this homeroom, teacher Liang Yuting asked in surprise, "Who said he was fourth in the grade?" Right then, a classmate smiled and said, "Earlier when the Chinese teacher walked past, it seemed like he said he was fourth place." Homeroom teacher Liang Yuting immediately corrected them. "He is literally first in the grade." Thunderous applause rang out. Even Wen Mengqi was looking at me with eyes full of admiration. I rubbed my nose and smiled, just pure luck. I couldn't possibly tell them this was my second time taking the test. Homeroom teacher Liang Yuting smiled and said, "All right. When the Chinese teacher comes for class later, he can go over his perfect score essay with you guys." On the other side, in a number 1 high classroom, the Chinese teacher was handing out test papers. Students who got their tests started discussing among themselves. "Holy crap, you're amazing. 53 points on the essay, wow." The Chinese teacher suddenly sighed and said, "For this exam, I honestly don't know what to say anymore. The essay topic was already given to you in advance. Yet, what happened? A whole bunch of you still ended up with 45 or 48 points on the essay." Suddenly, the teacher turned and asked Sun Fei, "How did you do?" Sun Fei lowered his head awkwardly and said, "Teacher, my test results aren't that great. Hey, it's such a waste considering you used to sit next to Lin Yifei." Hearing this, Sun Fei explained, "Lin Yifei's Chinese wasn't that good either though." Chinese teacher Liu Yun answered calmly and unhurriedly. Originally, since he transferred schools, there was no need to pay attention to him, but the kid is genuinely impressive. In this 4-school joint exam, Lin Yifei got 4th place in Chinese, and on top of that, he scored a perfect score on the essay. As those words dropped, Sun Fei was dumbfounded and said, "No way. Teacher, I remember Lin Yifei's Chinese being pretty mediocre. Did he somehow get a massive buff the moment he transferred to number 2 high?" Chinese teacher Liu Yun rolled his eyes and smiled. Who knows, maybe going to number 2 high made him actually start working hard. Hearing this, Sun Fei laughed in spite of himself. "Work hard, my ass." Working hard by pulling shady moves in the group chat, selling mushroom-themed lingerie on an online store, and going on dates to watch movies with female classmates. As the bell for the last class rang, I stood by the stairwell, looking at the score rankings posted along the hallway. Zhang Shiki and Wen Mengqi were standing nearby going, "Oh wow. So amazing, first in the grade for Chinese, third in the grade for math, third in the grade for English. Science was just a bit lower, making total score 10th in the grade." Zhang Shiki called out with a look of extreme envy, "If only your science score could have been pulled up a bit higher. You have to understand my weak point in my past life was Chinese, while my strong points were science and math, with English sitting right in the middle. However, science subjects like chemistry and biology actually require memorizing a ton of hard facts, which I had completely thrown to the back of my mind after graduating. So being reborn back here, pulling off these scores could already be considered pretty good. At least the 3 science subjects far exceeded my previous scores." Wen Mingqi pointed at her own name, then tugged at me, motioning for the little rich girl to take a look. Wen Mingqi was ranked 41st in the grade. Her tender, fair little finger pointed at her science score, and then she looked at me with a somewhat smug expression, as if she were flexing something. I smiled slightly and said, "Oh, not bad at all, huh?" I subconsciously pinched Wen Mengqi's nose and said, "Bring your scores up a bit more. And instead of going to Shanghai Conservatory of Music, go to Beijing Contemporary Music Academy. That way, you'll be able to see me." Zheng Shiki asked in surprise from the side, "Are you going to Beijing for college? Which school are you testing for?" Then I answered as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Tsinghua, obviously." Hearing this, Wen Mengqi asked blankly, "How did you know I was going to Shanghai Conservatory of Music?" Relying on memories from my past life, I clearly remembered that the little rich girl indeed went to Shanghai Conservatory of Music, although it was also one of the top art institutions in the country. As someone reborn, I was definitely going to apply for the absolute top-tier university in the nation. Whether it's the diploma, social networking circles, or future development prospects, everything is completely different. Besides, the thing I'm most confident about right now is the college entrance exam. After the exam, I'd actually lose my advantage. During these few years of college, I can still rely on my foresight of future trends to start a business and develop. Once these few years pass, the difficulty of changing my life will multiply countless times. Therefore, every single day right now is exceptionally crucial to me. Writing web novels was originally the most reliable path, since I knew which works would blow up later on. However, relying solely on memory, it might not be possible to perfectly replicate classic works. Just at this time, with the little rich girl's financial backing, I discovered that e-commerce might just be a shortcut that leads to success even more easily. The next morning, just as I arrived at school, I received a call from Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan telling me to head over to the office. I hurriedly returned to the classroom to put down my school bag, only to be surprised to find another breakfast sitting on my desk. At that moment, Shen Xinyue scampered over with a cheeky grin, saying, "I bought this for you. Why did you still buy one?" Then she intentionally leaned close to my ear and whispered with a smile, "Mushroom lingerie." With a giggle, she skipped back to her seat and sat down. He had accidentally seen Zheng Yensong's Moments post about packing express parcels for logistics yesterday, so he DM'd and asked about it. Never did he expect that upon asking he would find out. So many things had happened that he had no clue about. I amusedly laughed and said, "It's good that you didn't blabber about it." Shen Xinyue happily walked over, took my breakfast away, and said, "Then you're eating mine. Don't you dare give anything to Wen Mengqi again, otherwise I'll tell everyone your secret." I frowned and teased, "Are you threatening me?" Shen Xinyue's spoiled tone echoed, "I just want you to eat the breakfast I bought, that's all. I know you intentionally gave it to Wen Mengqi last time. And I know you guys went to the movies on Saturday too. How am I any worse than her? Why can't you give me a chance?" She always liked top students anyway, especially after this forced school joint exam, which made her even more deeply interested in me, even though they knew each other as elementary school classmates, and he had even chased after her elementary school classmate. She felt it didn't really matter anyway. Besides, Chen Xiru had also said she never hooked up with the guy. They had only had a tiny bit of ambiguity. Not to mention they had already blocked each other on WeChat now. What Shen Xinyue felt especially unconvinced about was that she looked prettier than Wen Mengqi, and was also better at talking and more proactive than her. Why on earth couldn't she win against that dazed girl? I immediately replied, "Sure. Block Chen Xiru on everything and get into Tsinghua or Peking University. If you pull that off, I'll consider it." In the blink of an eye, the bell for the first class rang. Physics teacher Nan Guoxin walked into the classroom. "You guys should have all looked at your scores by now. Now take out your test papers." "Oh, right, where's Lin Yifei?" I raised my hand and said, "Right here, teacher." "You kid got a grudge against me or something? You score so high in Chinese math and English, yet science totally tanked." As those words dropped, the physics teacher started going over the test paper with everyone. You could tell he was the type of teacher with super high efficiency. By the second class, we saw some leaders inspecting the school grounds. At that moment, a leader walked up to our classroom door and asked, "Just now, that student you mentioned who transferred over from number 1 high, is he in this class?" Then Dean Liu Xiaoping walked over with a smile, exchanged greetings with the physics teacher, and called out, "Is Lin Yifei here? Step outside for a moment." I stood up from my seat, instantly becoming the focus of all my classmates' gazes. I slowly walked out of the classroom, and then politely nodded to the teachers. Dean Liu Xiaoping said to me, "Don't be nervous. This is Director Song from the Provincial Education Bureau, and everyone else over here is from the Education Bureau as well." The teacher. Director Song smiled warmly and said, "You're the author who wrote that post about dropping out on the number 1 high forum, right? Not bad at all. I heard you transferred over from number 1 high, so you must have an understanding of both schools, and your grades are pretty good too, right? It seems because of that." Then Dean Liu Xiaoping preempted fighting. "This kid has a bit of a fiery temper, but his grades are stellar. He was in the top 10 of his grade at number 1 high too. And coming over to number 2 high, he's in the top 10 of the grade this 4-school joint exam as well." Director Song smiled warmly and said, "Fighting is definitely wrong. I just want to ask you this. Where do you think the biggest difference between number 1 high and number 2 high lies? Which school's study atmosphere do you think is better?" As those words dropped, Dean Liu Xiaoping felt his brain go completely numb. That question came way too out of left field. He looked at me rather nervously. I paused slightly before speaking up. "Well, it's like this. I feel the study pressure at number 1 high is a bit higher, but I prefer number 2 high." As those words dropped, number 2 high's Dean Liu Xiaoping flashed a beaming smile showing all 8 teeth. "Can you be a bit more specific? Why do you prefer number 2 high?" Studying at number 1 high, it felt like I wasn't studying for myself, but for the school, for my parents, and to live up to so-called parental expectations. For the sake of parents, for the sake of so-called not letting down one's parents. This kind of mindset places massive learning pressure on students, while also carrying a sense of grievance. For example, when I was at number 2 high, the homeroom teacher didn't just once say to me, "And the dean said it like that too? Don't let down your parents' expectations, You need to know that the most important thing right now is studying. Think about how hard your parents worked to send you here. How number one high is this and that. You must repay your parents. I think filial piety is naturally important, and repaying parents is naturally very important as well. But excessively instilling this concept into students is detrimental to the ideological growth of teenagers. We study for the sake of other people. However, it's different at number 2 high. When I was at number 1 high, PE class was free activity time. Yet during free activity, many people would still return to the classroom to self-study. Because of this, the students' physical health and stamina were much worse. Coming to number 2, high PE class requires running 800 meters. Once the running is done, everyone plays as they should and rests as they should. On the surface, it doesn't have as intensive a study atmosphere as number 1 high, but it aligns better with a study method that combines work and rest. In my view, number 2 high's educational philosophy towards students is completely different from number 1 high's. Perhaps in terms of test scores, number 1 high might have a slight advantage, but I feel that from the perspective of students' all around moral, intellectual, physical, and aesthetic development, including after graduation in the future, number 2 high students might actually turn out more outstanding. Teacher, I haven't been at number 2 high for long, and these are just my personal views. The Education Bureau leaders nodded one after another upon hearing this. Spoken brilliantly, as expected of someone who can write novels, this kid's logical theory and choice of words are both extremely rigorous. A leader half-jokingly said to the dean, if this kid hadn't been pulled out on a sudden whim of ours for questioning, I would have thought you guys had prepared the speech script in advance. Just like that. The pros and cons between number 1 high and number 2 high were explained quite clearly. Dean Liu Xiaoping smiled warmly and said, that's definitely impossible. It's mainly because Lin Yifei is genuinely rather outstanding, and his mindset is also more mature than the average classmate. In this 4-school joint exam, he also scored a rare perfect score on his essay. His expression skills are top-notch. Dean Liu Xiaoping very satisfyingly patted me on the shoulder, his impression of me instantly improving by a few notches. He's way too good with words. It sounds like he's praising number 2 high. Yet the praise isn't overly blatant, and he even drops that line at the end about not being here for long, making it feel extremely comfortable for the leaders to hear, not like that kind of one-sided flattery. At this moment, another Education Bureau leader pushed up his glasses and said, all right, there's one more thing. The provincial authorities want to pick a school to serve as a provincial key demonstration school. The evaluation criteria naturally include the study environment, college admission rates, faculty strength, as well as all aspects of the school's conditions and so on. From the current perspective, number 1 high fits this demonstration school status more. If you had to vote, which school would you vote for? I purposely rubbed the back of my head, faking a difficult response, teacher. Then I'll just speak my truth. Whichever school I'm at, that's the one I hope gets selected. So I'm voting for number 2 high. Several teachers burst out laughing one after another. Ha ha ha, true. Everyone hopes their own alma mater gets picked. Right at that moment, I mustered up the courage and said, teacher, can I take a photo with you guys? It's like this. I'm a bit weak as a person, and I want to brag to others that the leaders came to chat with me. At this, the Education Bureau leaders were thoroughly amused by these remarks. Oh, this kid is way too interesting. We aren't celebrities. What's there to brag about? I explained sheepishly. However, I feel that being able to be an Education Bureau leader is already super impressive. When the leaders saw that this kid was quite interesting, and on top of that was praising them like they were celebrities, saying a photo could even be used to brag, they immediately said with a smile, all right, then let's take one with you. Right, you kid, write novels pretty well too. Keep it up. Strive to become a great writer in the future. I immediately took 1 or 2 photos with the leaders, and on impulse posted them to my Moments Awesome. The Education Bureau leaders praised me, and even asked me whether number 1 high or number 2 high is better. Jung Yen Song, who had taken a leave of absence for a portion of the afternoon, also returned to the classroom for class. A bunch of the classmates he was on okay terms with showed their concern for him one after another. After Jung Yen Song briefly explained a few things, he slumped over his desk. Right at that moment, Liu Xiang whispered from the side, while you were gone. These past few days, Lin Yifei has been totally OP. Then he recounted everything that had happened during the time he was away, even bringing up the fact that Xinyu bought me breakfast. Right then, I suddenly grabbed a bottle of unopened milk and tossed it over, saying, just bought it. How's it going? Sheng. Yansong caught the milk and pulled me along to head outside the classroom, specifically walking all the way to the end of the hallway for a private chat. This completely dumbfounded the surrounding classmates. What the hell? Since when did they get so close? Jiang. Shiki couldn't help gossiping as she asked Wen Mengqi. Weren't those two about to throw punches? How come they're chatting it up together all of a sudden? Wen Mengqi also shook her head blankly. Even Shen Yue was stunned. Those two were actually chatting and laughing with each other. The results are really great right now. Quite a few genuine customer streams have come in. Yesterday, I calculated and we sold 36 orders. After chatting for a bit about the current state of the online store, I playfully patted his shoulder and said, right. Why don't you hurry up and chase Shen Yue? Otherwise, she keeps bugging the hell out of me. Zheng Yensong lowered his head and smiled awkwardly. It's not that I don't want to. You saw it too. Every single method I tried failed. I feel like she still prefers guys like you who are smart and get top grades. I smiled slightly and said, why don't you just level up your grades? Score higher than her and boom, problem solved. Who knows, she might even turn around and chase you instead. Zheng Yansong didn't even dare to imagine Shen Yue turning around to chase him. Trust me, Shen Yue isn't actually that hard to pursue. The focus isn't on chasing. The focus is on strengthening yourself so she looks up to you. During lunch, I opened my moment and immediately burst out laughing. That photo with the Education Bureau leaders in particular got completely flooded with likes. You're insane, bro. The Education Bureau leaders even asked you whether number 1 high or number 2 high is better, as expected of you. You're out here stealing the spotlight at number 2 high just like before. Even Sun Fei sent a separate message just eating lunch and saw your moment. I suspect you did that on purpose, so I helped screenshot it and forwarded it to my own moments. Good bro, you're too smooth. Right at that moment, Arts Committee member Yan Ziki walked over and said, Wen Mengqi, are you signing up for that cultural performance the teacher mentioned last time? Wen Mengqi timidly shook her head and continued eating her meal with her head down. Yan Ziki hesitated for a moment and said, oh, come on, but you played really well last time. I feel like our class's biggest flex is definitely you. If you don't participate, it'll be such a massive loss. Don't you want to show off your playing skills in front of Lin Yifei? Hearing this, Wen Mengqi's face flushed bright red. I chimed in, it's fine, it all depends on whether you want to participate or not. Nobody's going to force you. At that moment, Yan Ziki intentionally leaned close to Wen Mengqi's ear and whispered something. Then Wen Mengqi gritted her teeth and replied in a soft voice, fine, I'll participate. Yan Ziki clapped her hands in excitement. Awesome. What about you, Lin Yifei? 3501 non. Look, even Wen Mengqi is participating. This is the final year of high school already. If you have a talent, don't keep it hidden away. I finally figured it out. This arts committee member is seriously good at sweet-talking people. And who knows what she even said to the little rich girl, actually managing to convince her. Then I gave a response, let's see. If nobody in the class really signs up by then, I can go too. Arts committee member Yan Ziki said with a cheeky grin. Well, I don't care. I'm counting that as you signing up. What kind of talent do you even have? The corners of my mouth curled up slightly, and I intentionally glanced at the little rich girl, Wen Mengqi, discovering that this little dummy was actually quite curious and expectant. Only then did I reply, card magic. On the other side, over in number 1 high's cafeteria, several teachers were eating their meal. A teacher song? Do you remember that Lin Yifei from your class earlier? I heard he's doing insane things at number 2 high now. Even the Education Bureau leaders took photos with him. Does someone in his family have connections or something? Senior year class 2 homeroom teacher Song Wenbo frowned slightly. What do you mean? Education Bureau leaders. Teacher Zheng next to him laughed and said, I don't know either. I just saw it shared on my students' moments. Following that, senior year class 2 homeroom teacher Song Wenbo saw that moment's post of mine. Song Wenbo was dumbfounded and said, wait, I didn't know about this at all. I've never heard of him having connections like that in his family. In an instant, his heart plummeted straight to his stomach. Is something about to go wrong here? Finishing his meal in a fluster, he nervously asked that teacher Zheng, can you forward this photo to me? Teacher. Song Wenbo hurried away from the cafeteria in a rush. The remaining teachers couldn't help gossiping and eating melons over the situation. I heard this Lin Yifei only dropped out because he got into a fight with him. If the kid actually has backing, who knows? His senior teacher application might be completely screwed. You guys probably don't know this, but the student who got into a fight with Lin Yifei is actually... At this moment, Song Wenbo arrived at the dean's office. Liu Qiang frowned as he glanced at the photo. They really were higher up leaders, only looking at the background. It seemed to be inside the number 2 high campus. Right. Afterwards, he called up a teacher he was on good terms with in number 2 high to get the rundown. After hanging up the phone, Liu Chang's expression was complicated as he reported. Director, knowing the student transferred over from number 1 high, they specifically called him out of the classroom and asked him questions regarding the issues between the two schools. The kid said whichever school he's studying at, that's the school he hopes get selected as a demonstration key high school. Song Wenbo only then breathed a sigh of relief and returned to his own office. However, right at that moment, the office phone suddenly started ringing. After answering the call, Liu Chang felt his whole body go numb because the principal had actually called personally just now, ordering that all seniors must have PE class and are not allowed to return to the classroom during class time, staying outdoors for exercise instead. What made his hair stand on end the most was that an education bureau leader had leaked to them that number 2 high was doing a better job in this regard than them. Liu Chang was truly scared out of his wits. He never expected a single student would almost cause a massive issue if it genuinely affected number 1 high's bid for selecting a demonstration key high school. That really would be a loss outweighing the gains. Then Liu Chang had a flash of inspiration, found my parents' phone number and dialed, "Hello, is this Lin Yifei's parent? I'm number 1 high's dean. We met once before. The child's file is still at our school, and I happen to want to pay a visit to check on how the child is doing after transferring schools. Why don't you give me your address, and I'll drop by your house. I'm mainly worried that because of the transfer, the child's grades might take a hit. So I want to chat with you about the child's situation. Even though he dropped out, he's still someone who came out of our number 1 high after all. I'll pay a visit to your home this weekend." Just then, having just finished school and returned home, I overheard the phone call between my dad and the dean. I smiled slightly and said, "Dad, do you think this kind of good thing actually exists in the world?" I find it strange too." But he emphasized several times that he wanted to deliver it personally, and even said that since you came from number 1 high after all, he wanted to understand your study situation at number 2 high. While eating my meal, I pulled out my phone and handed it over to my dad. Lian Jian took a puzzled look at his son's Moments post. "Director, you even took a photo with the Education Bureau leaders. Could it be that number 1 high's dean is looking for you?" Because of this matter, I nodded in acknowledgement, and after finishing my meal, I went back to my room. I could just use this time to update a chapter of my novel. The next day, as soon as I returned to school, I ran into a massive piece of gossip. Word was that someone went to take the Sun Yat-sen University joint entrance exam and got admitted into Sun Yat-sen University without even needing the regular Gaokao. Hearing this, I muttered to myself, I'd rather study hard and take the regular Gaokao. Right when I returned to the classroom and sat down, I heard Liu Xiang say excitedly, "Let me tell you guys some great news. Your boy is going to Sun Yat-sen University." As those words dropped, a large group of classmates swarmed over. "You didn't actually go take that joint exam too, did you?" Liu Jiang said smugly. "How'd you guys know? My dad just sent me a message saying so, ha ha ha. At this rate, the Gaokao is just a formality for me now." Quite a few people gasped in amazement. "No way, how did you even pass?" Liu Jiang replied with a cheeky grin. "That secret can't be told." I let out a snort of laughter, crooked my finger at Liu Jiang and said, "Come here." Liu Jiang smugly sat down in Jiang Shiqi's seat. "What's up, top student?" "Jealous. Who knows, maybe you and I will even end up at the same university. Though I haven't figured out what major to study yet." I leaned close to Liu Jiang's ear and whispered, "Call the police. If you're lucky, it might still not be too late." Liu Jiang was dumbfounded. "Why, what the hell you mean I got scammed? How is that possible?" When we took the exam, we literally took it in the computer lab inside Sun Yat-sen University. It was organized by their school itself. How could it be fake? I sighed, shook my head and said, "Then I'll look up Sun Yat-sen University's admissions hotline." "Then look at this number," Liu Jiang said smugly. My dad already called it. The corners of my mouth curled up slightly, and I teased with a chuckle. "The number your dad called was the flyer handout recruitment line. That one's definitely legit, no doubt. You gotta search for Sun Yat-sen University's official website online. Though it's so early right now, nobody might be answering yet. Wait until 9 o'clock to call again." Meanwhile, over in the senior year class 2 classroom at number 1 high, Chansiru was holding the Sun Yat-sen University admission list, cheering happily. Out of 201 test takers, only 21 people were admitted, and she was one of them. She even invited everyone to her house to eat a massive feast and throw a celebration party. However, Sunfei was somewhat shocked. How on earth could Chen Xiru have passed the Sun Yat-sen University joint exam? She immediately felt something was off and sent me a message. As for me, I unhurriedly replied back, haha, what a coincidence. I have a classmate who got admitted too, though he's already crying right now. Seeing the message, Sunfei looked up. At that moment, the classmates were already swarming around Chen Xiru with all sorts of congratulations. Sunfei still couldn't help chuckling nervously as she said, let me say something that might not sound too pleasant. Is there any chance this thing could be fake? As those words dropped, everyone froze. Chen Xiru frowned, glared at Sunfei and snapped. What do you mean? Sunfei shook her head and replied, I mean, is it possible Sun Yat-sen University doesn't even have a joint exam? Chen Xiru snorted and answered, how could that be? When we took the exam, we literally went inside Sun Yat-sen University's campus to take it. And after everyone paid the fee, we still had to take a registration exam. Only after passing the registration exam could we participate in the joint exam. The joint exam was super strict too. Didn't you hear what I said just now? Less than 1/10 got admitted. Chen Xiru's close friend also chimed in with a teasing laugh. Exactly. How could it be fake? You're just jealous of Sister Du. I'm telling you, Sunfei, you wouldn't get into Sun Yat-sen University in this lifetime. Sunfei originally didn't want to phrase things too harshly, but Liu Xian's words made her feel somewhat disgusted. So she directly spoke up, I just asked Lin Yifei, and he said this Sun Yat-sen joint exam is fake. As those words dropped, everyone was dumbfounded. The next second, Liu Xian gritted her teeth. What's Lin Yifei supposed to be? He must be jealous, too jealous of our Siru. I've thought for a long time that he's no good guy. Clearly, he was the one who threw punches and got disciplined. Yet he still wants to drag Siru down with him. Right at that moment, suddenly a classmate suggested, why don't we just make a phone call right now and ask Sun Yat-sen University's admissions office? If people really got admitted, it should be searchable, right? Chen Xiru promptly found a photo on her phone. The bottom right corner had Sun Yat-sen University's admissions office phone number. Hello, is this the Sun Yat-sen University admissions office? At that moment, everyone in the classroom perked up their ears nervously. This is the Sun Yat-sen University admissions office. How can I help you? Liu Xian immediately blurted out, I want to ask, did your school host a joint exam? Like an early exam, where students can get admitted without taking the Gaokao? On the phone, a polite voice smiled and said, oh yes. There is such a thing, but the slots are limited, and the exam should be over by now. As those words dropped, everyone boiled over with excitement. Liu Xian and Chen Xiru didn't forget to mock Sun Fei ruthlessly. You and Lin Yifei are just green with envy. Since you guys couldn't pass, you claim other people's stuff is fake. At this moment, Sun Fei was completely baffled too. That's not right. Lin Yifei clearly said it was fake. Why did calling this number result in them saying it exists? At that moment, Sun Fei frowned. Something definitely went wrong somewhere. She immediately went online and searched for Sun Yat-sen University's official admissions phone number, then dialed it during recess. The final reply she received was, our Sun Yat-sen University did not host any joint exam, nor is there any such thing as early admission. Those exam fees you guys paid were definitely scammed out of you by fraudsters. Hurry up and call the police. Our school leaders have already started launching an investigation. Hearing this, Sun Fei instantly smirked. So the phone call they just made was definitely fake. Returning to the classroom shortly after, she happened to catch homeroom teacher Song Wenbo explaining problems on the podium. Teacher, there's something I don't know whether I should say or not. I just called and asked. Sun Yat-sen University didn't host any joint exam. It's a scam. Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo frowned and said, what scam? What's Sun Yat-sen joint exam? Who told you guys Sun Yat-sen has a joint exam? Sun Fei chuckled and said, I didn't say it. Someone in our class said they got early admission to Sun Yat-sen University. Didn't they? Hearing this, Liu Xian retorted speechlessly, teacher, Sun Fei is just jealous of Chen Xiru. People already called and asked, yet she's still lingering on this. Sun Fei snorted, jealous of what? I actually called and asked myself. There is no joint exam whatsoever. And furthermore, they said the exam fees you guys paid were all scammed by fraudsters. The reason the exams were held inside Sun Yat-sen University's campus was because they partnered with an educational agency initially. Only nobody expected they'd pull stunts like this. The school leadership over there has already called the police. And you guys are still sitting here accusing me of being jealous? Chen Xiru speechlessly said, didn't we just call and ask earlier? Why are you so annoying? Did Lin Yifei say something to you again? Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo was still a bit dazed just a moment ago. But suddenly hearing the three characters Lin Yifei jolted him completely awake. What does this have something to do with Lin Yifei? What's going on? So Sun Fei explained the entire incident. Hearing this, homeroom teacher Song Wenbo frowned and said, "But there's definitely an issue, because as far as I know, Sun Yat-sen University has no such thing as a joint exam. If there were, I definitely would have told you guys." Chen Siru was aggrieved to the absolute extreme. "Teacher, we just called the Sun Yat-sen admissions office earlier, and they said, it's real, I'm completely done with this. Whatever Lin Yifei says, she just blindly believes." Liu Jian was also furious. "Exactly. If Lin Yifei told you to go eat shit, why don't you go eat shit?" Sun Fei scoffed. "None of your damn business. I kindly reminded you guys and still get cursed out." She then turned around, kicked the door open, and stormed out. Homeroom teacher Song Wenbo saw this rowdiness and shouted angrily, "Such a noisy uproar, what kind of behavior is this? I'll just make a phone call and ask." With that, homeroom teacher Song Wenbo took out his phone and inquired about the matter regarding the Sun Yat-sen joint exam. After hanging up the call, Song Wenbo spoke with a complicated expression. "Chen Siru, step outside for a moment. I just asked. There indeed is a matter of a Sun Yat-sen joint exam." Hearing this, Chen Siru immediately smiled happily. "I told you it definitely exists." However, the next second, homeroom teacher Song Wenbo pulled a straight face. "However, it's fake. Based on what I currently understand, Sun Yat-sen University does not have any joint exam admissions. Instead, quite a lot of people who participated in the Sun Yat-sen joint exam were scammed out of their money by some training agencies, using the banner of the Sun Yat-sen joint exam. I heard the registration fee is very expensive. Is that true?" Chen Siru's eyes instantly turned red and she choked out, "Teacher, how could it be fake? But I don't know either. The money my mom paid." Subsequently, Chen Siru tearfully told the whole story, from start to finish. Hearing this, homeroom teacher Song Wenbo was left crying and laughing. In this day and age, where on earth are there such good things? Meanwhile, over at the number 2 high campus, police officers from the local station had already arrived at the school. Liu Jiang recounted all the details. Teacher Luo Yuting also called over the victims from other classes to have parents head to the police station together to defend their rights. Liu Jiang returned to the classroom feeling completely crestfallen, not even having the face to chat with his classmates. He had just flexed so hard, only to find out it was completely fake. Jiang, Shiki, and several other girls gathered together to gossip, whispering, "I heard someone at number 1 high found out it was fake too. They were even arguing about it in class earlier." At this moment, I pulled out my phone and saw the message Sun Fei sent. It feels so damn good. Seeing Chen Siru come back from the office crying, I feel so much more comfortable. You have no idea. Chen Siru and Liu Zian pissed me off so much just now. I swear I almost wanted to drop out. Ha ha ha. No 2 high welcomes you. All jokes aside, if going to number 2 high means I could be in the same class as you, I'd genuinely consider it. It's so boring over here. Then I told Sun Fei about the dean coming over to my house this Saturday to deliver my student file and casually invited a few close classmates to drop by my house for a get-together on Saturday. Hearing this, Sun Fei instantly blew her top. "Didn't the dean get into a fight with you? And you even beat up his son. How can he still personally deliver your file to your doorstep?" In the afternoon, Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan came to the classroom. "Yifei, everything's ready. Head over to the electronic reading room on the 2nd floor, room 302 later on. Remember not to be late." Following that, a large group of curious people swarmed over. "Why did the teacher call you to the electronic reading room?" I slowly replied, "They said they're holding some kind of public lecture at the school and invited me to be a student guest speaker to share some of my creative mental journey. To be honest, at the very beginning, I figured it was just a public lecture anyway, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Just BS my way through and get it over with." However, when I actually arrived at the electronic reading room on the 2nd floor, room 302, I discovered it was packed to the brim inside. It was filled entirely with junior and sophomore students. Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan smiled from the side and said, "They're here. Later on, Education Bureau leaders, along with our school leaders, are all coming to sit in on the lecture. The public lecture will be filmed and recorded, so don't be nervous. Just follow my cues when the time comes." A few minutes later, as the bell rang, Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan held a microphone, stood on stage, and said, "Today, the topic of our public lecture is how to make reading and writing your hobby. Many people say I don't like reading books. I hate reading and I hate writing compositions either. Right? Is there anyone here who would say I love reading books? Raise your hand and let me see." At that moment, standing over at the guest spot nearby, I raised my hand and said, "As long as it's not textbooks, I love reading all of them." As those words dropped, the entire venue burst out laughing. The atmosphere instantly shot right up. Several education bureau leaders were also whispering to each other, chatter bubbling up. How is it this kid again? This kid really is quite interesting. Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan said with a smile, all right. Don't listen to him talking nonsense. He reads way more books than you guys do. In order to help us develop good reading habits and cultivate writing skills, our school is officially establishing a literature club. Following that, he introduced the literature club. By joining the literature club, everyone can share the books they love reading together. Whether it's novels, literary publications, extracurricular readings, and so on, you can find like-minded friends, and while relaxing, you can level up your reading and writing abilities. Let me ask how many people know about the novel I dropped out on the number 2 high Baidu Tiba. Raise your hand if you do. As those words dropped, the junior and sophomore students below raised their hands one after another. Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan smiled and said, "That proves you guys do love reading after all, right? You just aren't reading textbooks, that's all." Then he smiled slightly again and asked, "So do any of you know who wrote this novel I dropped out?" There was wave after wave of whispering and discussions below. Then, riding the momentum, he announced with a smile, "Now let's welcome our literature club's special guest, the author of I Dropped Out, Lin Yifei from senior year class 4 to the stage." As those words dropped, thunderous applause rang out. The students below opened their eyes wide one by one, staring at me up on stage. The moment I took the stage, it completely detonated the atmosphere of the entire venue. "Hello everyone, I am Lin Yifei from senior year class 4. I neglect my proper duties and don't like studying. Everyone must absolutely not learn from me. Look at the big screen. This is my 4-school joint exam score report. I projected my own score report onto the PPT, flexing my top student grades right at the opening. Standing on stage, I said, why did I put my grades up here first? Does any junior or sophomore student know? Raise your hand and let me see." Soon a boy mustered up the courage, raised his hand and said, "Senior, you want to tell us that the reason you write novels isn't because you're indulging in idle pleasures and ruining your ambitions, but rather because your academic grades are already top tier to begin with. At the same time, your Chinese and math scores are both super high. So the novels you write not only have great writing style, but your logic is also extremely strong." Hearing this, I chuckled and said, "Dead wrong. The reason I put my grades up here first is purely to brag and let you guys know that the person standing on the stage is none other than a senior whose grades are miles ahead of yours. I just want to ask you guys, am I badass or what?" As those words dropped, the students below instantly boiled over badass. Fucking badass. At this moment, Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan started panicking, instantly grabbing the microphone with a smile. Hey, keep your language civilized. Especially you, Lin. Yifei, what are you even saying? The leaders are all watching. The students below burst into laughter. The leaders also shook their heads, unable to laugh or cry. The principal even had to proactively explain the situation to the leaders sitting next to him. I continued speaking, I continued and said, okay. Returning to the main topic, bragging aside, today, since I was invited as a guest to attend this literature club event and share my creative mental journey, along with my so-called insights, I definitely still need to drop some hard knowledge on you guys. Here's a catchy phrase. Everyone can take note of it. Actually, it's just 3 things. Repeat simple tasks, persist in repeated tasks, and do persistent tasks happily. What does it mean to repeat simple tasks? Why did I mention making everyone do simple tasks instead of targeting so-called difficulties? Does anyone know? At this moment, 2 more girls raised their hands, but I changed my tune and said, don't raise your hands. I'm not going to let you guys answer. First of all, I still need to flex a bit myself. Another wave of cheers and laughter erupted, and the students were thoroughly entertained. Then, with a smiling gaze, I said, because there is a saying that goes, everyone has their own strengths. Heaven has created talents for a useful purpose. Everyone has a side that they excel at. Some people excel at sports. Some people excel at painting. Some people excel at music. And some people excel at bullshitting. So here comes the question, in the field where you excel, doesn't the task you have to do seem very simple? For example, is scoring 140 points on a Chinese test hard? The junior students below shouted out loud, hard, while I chuckled with a smirk and said, what seems very simple to me turns out to be super hard for you guys. What is this? This is pure talent. The students were utterly amused. Even the Education Bureau leaders couldn't help laughing out loud, shaking their heads as they leaned in close to each other and whispered, this kid really knows how to talk. And he's so confident too. I continued, Repeating simple tasks doesn't mean doing all simple tasks. Rather, it means tasks that might have a threshold or difficulty for others, yet are slightly simple to you. You must repeatedly do tasks like this, and must never feel like it's meaningless, boring, trivial, or lacking challenge, because once you give up this so-called simple task to pursue difficult tasks, it's actually equivalent to giving up your Excel talent and throwing away your true specialty. As those words dropped, the leaders below couldn't help but light up inside. This analytical angle was actually pretty interesting. Following my speech, thunderous applause erupted from the students below. Even Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan couldn't help nodding approvingly, as expected of a full-score composition literature powerhouse. Even the Education Bureau leaders sitting in the back rows, along with the school principal, happily joined in the applause. This was spoken too well. It's way more exciting than listening to those older teachers lecture at the previous few schools. After the public lecture concluded, several leaders smilingly took their leave one after another, repeatedly praising my talent. As for me, I instantly harvested a whole bunch of fangirls right there at school. Quite a few little girls mustered up the courage to come up and ask me for my contact info, all of which I waved off and rejected. Subsequently, Chinese teacher Luo Wengshuan praised me from the side. "You kid are something else." The principal said this public lecture's recorded video is going to be put on our number 2 High's official website for promotion. It's a pity you're already in senior year. Otherwise, this position of literature club president would definitely belong to you. All jokes aside, that very night, my speech video was already posted on the campus, Baidu Tiba Forum, and even pinned and stickied. For a time, numerous number 2 High students swarmed in to watch the video and left all sorts of comments below. So the novel was actually written by you. I want to bear your children. I want to have your babies. However, nobody knew at all that such a senior high school student, one envied by so many peers, was right now doing something so boldly unimaginable to people his age, because I was hiding in my room, picking out new mushroom-themed lingerie to get a promotional event rolling for Christmas. Yet the upfront investment had taken a lot of money. Little rich girl, Wen Menqi's vault was about to be hollowed out by me by over 200,000, leaving just over 50K now. The next day, taking the bus back to school, I unexpectedly ran into 2 acquaintances. Shortly after, I looked toward that figure who had once left such a deep scarring mark on me in my past life, and asked, "Did you guys get that money back from Sun Yat-sen University?" Sigh, I'm saying, why are people these days so wicked? Hearing this, Chensuru lowered her head, walking over to my side with her head bowed down, and said in a soft voice, "I'm sorry. Good thing you reminded us. Otherwise, we might not have figured it out so fast." Right at that moment, the bus suddenly lurched, and Chen Siro instinctively grabbed onto my arm to steady herself. She looked at me with a pitiful expression and softly asked, Are you free on Christmas? I know you must still be mad, but I want to treat you to a meal to apologize, okay?" She looked up and blinked her big eyes. I have to admit, Chen Siro truly was the type of girl with stunning looks. Her pitiful tone even caused the guys on the bus to stare blankly. But this didn't work on me at all. I frowned and replied, "Not free." Chensiru shook my arm and acted spoiled. "Come on. I know I was wrong. Don't be mad at me anymore." Liu Xian also chimed in from the side to persuade me, "Look, Chensiru already apologized to you. Why don't you just give her a chance? Guys shouldn't be so petty. Not gonna lie, with these 2 girls pulling this routine, a guy who was even slightly soft-hearted might genuinely get scanned by them. God knows how much psychological manipulation I ate in my past life. When I finally found out that Chen Siru and Zhao Tianlei got together, and even heard news about them getting married, I completely broke down. Now looking back at this so-called first love joke, I honestly felt zero feeling whatsoever. You could even say that apart from Chen Siru's decent looks, the impression she gave me wasn't even as good as Sheng Xinyuan. So after decisively turning her down, I got straight off the bus. Since Christmas was approaching, I wrote a single note and handed it to the little rich girl, Wen Mengqi. Wen Mengqi looked at the note containing just one single character and was instantly left speechless. Right at that moment, Zheng Yansong suddenly cheered with excitement, "Let's fucking go!" The classmates chatting nearby were startled. Then Zheng Yansong rushed over to find me, pulled out his phone to log into the online store's merchant backend, his eyes full of uncontrollable excitement. "Look, the main product we pushed for Christmas is blowing up. There are so many DMs in the backend asking when it'll arrive." I slowly said, "This is just the beginning." Reply to them uniformly like this. Say regular shipping takes 3 to 4 days to arrive, and expedited shipping can arrive the next day, though they have to pay the shipping fee. Jung Yen-song gritted his teeth and said, I'm taking a half-day leave. With so many customers consulting, my sister is definitely too busy to handle it alone. I had a flash of inspiration and said, I have a way. At that moment, the two of them arrived at the classroom office, knocked on the door, and homeroom teacher Liang Yuting looked back to find Jung Yen-song and me walking in. Oh, what is it? Did you guys fight again? Teacher, I want to apply to borrow a computer at school or turn on a machine in the electronic reading room. Homeroom teacher Liang Yuting frowned, turned around and asked, what do you guys need to borrow a computer for? To do some things unrelated to studying, but I can guarantee that Jung Yen-song will pass the Tier 1 benchmark on the first mock exam. As those words dropped, Jung Yen-song was completely dumbfounded, nervously pulling on my sleeve as he whispered, how the hell am I supposed to pass the Tier 1 benchmark? I can't do it. Seeing this scene, homeroom teacher Liang Yuting also smiled. She immediately bantered, even he doesn't believe it himself. And yet you expect me to believe it. If you said you could test into Tier 1 yourself, I'd say that might actually work. But how on earth is Jung Yen-song supposed to do it? His English is a weak point, and his Chinese is also falling behind. Wait, aren't all the things he's falling behind in your specialties, right? You're going to teach him. Teacher, I'm not just going to teach him. I'm going to make damn sure he passes the Tier 1 benchmark on the first mock exam. Homeroom teacher Liang Yuting rolled her eyes and said, look at this little brat. Then she joked, your word doesn't count. What if he can't pass? Besides, what on earth do you guys need a computer for? Jung Yen-song gritted his teeth and said, forget it. Teacher, how about I just take a half-day leave? I'll just say there's something going on at home. At that moment, homeroom teacher Liang Yuting was dumbfounded. What on earth is going on with these two? Can't you guys just speak clearly? Why do you need to use a computer? If I don't approve this and you're asking for leave, does that mean you're going to skip class? Then Jung Yen-song chimed in, yes. If you don't approve it, I'll have no choice but to skip class. Homeroom teacher Liang Yuting was so angry she stood right up, grabbed both of us and brought us out to the hallway to lecture us. Lin Yifei, you explain first what's going on. If you can't explain it clearly, don't go to class either, until you've made it completely clear. Jung Yen-song was also completely clueless, having no idea what I was actually planning to do, while suddenly claiming that I'd make him pass the Tier 1 benchmark on his first mock exam. You have to know, he was currently short of the Tier 1 cutoff by 40 to 50 points. However, right at that moment, I suddenly spoke up, teacher, I can tell you, but you have to keep it a secret. Liang Yuting let out a helpless sigh, fine, I promise you. Go ahead, the next second. I opened up my monster-themed lingerie online store and handed her the phone. When homeroom teacher Liang Yuting saw that it was actually monster-themed lingerie, her face instantly turned completely red. And she scolded, you kid? How can you look at things like this? She was utterly stunned. Sneaking peeks at it would be one thing, but you're actually showing it to your teacher. Jung Yen-song also widened his eyes. Holy shit! No way you can actually show this to a teacher. It took me over 10 minutes in the end to explain the whole sequence of events from beginning to end. Hearing this, Liang Yuting sighed, shocked, you guys. Really gave me a scare that honestly scared me to death. At your age, what kind of shop wouldn't be better to open? And yet you're selling this kind of stuff? Thinking of those monster lingerie photos from just now. Even an adult like her couldn't help blushing. She could hardly imagine that this kid was actually a store owner. If Jung Yen-song had pulled off something like this, she would have been surprised, but she still could have understood. Yet it turned out to be done by a good student like me. This contrast was simply too huge. I replied, teacher, this is legal and legitimate. So whether you approve it or not, Jung Yen-song is going to take leave anyway. I figured it'd be better to just give him a computer and let him stay at school. That way, the 15-minute lunch break right after class ends and mealtimes can all be utilized, which can also maximize the protection of his normal studies. Of course, I know doing this doesn't comply with the rules. If I were still at number 1 high, I definitely wouldn't be able to say this, but this is number 2 high. And you are my homeroom teacher, right? Liang Yuting let out a chuckle and said, what about me? Does that mean I'm guaranteed to agree? I answered with absolute certainty, I trust teacher. You're a truly good teacher who genuinely has a student's best interest at heart. Liang Yuting was left crying and laughing, all right. Stop putting teachers on such a high pedestal. Your silver tongue is really something else. I can bring my spare laptop from home. Just come over to the office to find me after class to get it. The only problem is, what should we do if other people ask about it? And besides, the things your shop sells might not look too good if other students and teachers see them. As those words dropped, she couldn't help rolling her eyes at me. I had a flash of inspiration and replied, we can use the library. Leave the computer stored in the library and Jung Yensong can head straight there after class. Liang Yuting frowned and hesitated for a moment. That's fine, I suppose, though I still feel like this isn't quite right. But she also understood Jung Yansong's family situation. He grabbed Jung Yensong's head, pressing it down directly, then bowed and shouted out loud, "Thank you, teacher." Seeing this scene, Liang Yuting truly had no other choice left. Sighed and said, "Fine. Let's just leave it at that." When I opened the merchant backend on Thursday to take a look, the revenue had actually broken through 300K, right while Jung Yansong was still excited. I laughed helplessly and said, "Don't get too excited yet. Here comes the problem. With a freaking 300K sales rush, we have to put up the capital first before we can ship anything out. Otherwise, how are we going to manage?" Jung Yansong only then panicked and said, Right. Just a moment ago, I wanted to say when I tried it out just now. It prompted that the bank card had no money left. So a lot of orders can't be processed right now. What do? I'll figure out a way. Wait for my news. I knew that Jung Yansong's side definitely couldn't be counted on. After all, if he had any money, he would have long since borrowed it out for the hospital and car accident compensation. What should I do? Show my cards to my parents and tell them their son is now doing great, with hundreds of thousands in daily turnover. I immediately dismissed this idea. Right at that moment, Wen Mengqi suddenly sent a message over. "What are you doing?" My eyes rolled, and I immediately replied, "Thinking about someone. Do you still have any money, he?" Soon Wen Mengqi replied, "I don't anymore. I gave it all to you." Seeing the message, my mind went blank. It seemed like even I didn't know what to do anymore. After all, the little vault had already been cleaned out by myself. Unexpectedly, 10 minutes later, Wen Mengqi sent another message along with a string of numbers. The instant I saw the message, 2 words spilled out of my mouth: fucking legendary. I stole my dad's card. There should be money inside his card. At that moment, my head was buzzing. Now I finally understood why Student Wen got scammed by a scum guy in her past life. She was simply too foolish. How could there be such a foolishly cute girl? She could actually steal her family member's card out. Subsequently, I replied, "What if you get found out? Will they call the police to arrest me?" Won't happen, my dad has a lot of cards. He might not even notice if one goes missing. Anyway, just put the money back in when it's discovered. I was literally about to be moved to tears. If I don't cherish her properly, this little rich girl really is a total dumbass. I instantly ran over to an outdoor bank ATM, pressed the cardless transaction button, and then clicked on balance inquiry. I wouldn't have known if I didn't look, but looking gave me a huge shock. 10, 100,000, 10,000? 100,000 million? There was actually 1.45 million inside this cart. I couldn't help swallowing hard. That is to say, before and after including the little rich girl's entire vault. I had pretty much taken about 2 million from her. Friday morning, I took the bus back to the school gate and brought breakfast for the little rich girl, Wen Mengqi. After returning to the classroom and waiting for quite a while, I finally saw Wen Mengqi and Zhang Shiki return to the classroom together. Then I pressed close to Wen Mengqi's ear and whispered, "Too many people are watching. Otherwise, I'd feed it to you." The little rich girl, Wen Mengqi, instantly blushed and lowered her head, biting her lip as she munched away. Then 2 math classes passed, and Liu Xiang hugged a basketball, calling out a few classmates to go outside and relax together. Zheng Yansong replied, "You guys go ahead. I'm going to the library." With that said, he grabbed a few books and a CT scan, preparing to head to the library. At first, everyone thought Zheng Yansong was just bragging, only to find out that Zheng Yansong actually went to the library. This completely blew everyone's minds. Not only that, but during every single break after class from then on, almost whenever he had time, Zheng Yansong would go to the library to study. This huge contrast directly made his classmates question their lives. A few minutes later, homeroom teacher Liang Yuting suddenly walked in. "Before class starts, I want to announce some news to everyone. Didn't we mention a few days ago the concept of study groups? Student Lin Yifei also pointed out that this study method has certain limitations. Then following my previous suggestion, the groups were allocated. However, right at that moment, I suddenly raised my hand. Teacher, I suggest that every student can join a maximum of 2 study group subjects, making everyone's study direction clearer, while also reducing the burden on the little teachers. Otherwise, if all 30 or 40 people in a class come over to ask questions, nobody could handle it." Liang Yuting showed an appreciative expression and smiled. "Wait. So let's just do it like that." At this moment inside the police station, the criminals had already been caught. A large group of parents who had been scammed out of their money by the training institution all gathered together, clamoring, why could number 2 high's money be retrieved? While the money of us, Experimental High and South China, Normal University, can't be refunded, in an instant, the police station became as chaotic as a boiling pot. At this time, a police officer sighed and shouted loudly, "First, it's not that your money can't be tracked down, it's currently being tracked down and hasn't happened that fast yet. Second, because someone from number 2 high reported the case. We froze the scam syndicates, bank cards at the very first moment. However, this organization was very smart and collected the tuition fees of students from your several schools separately. The training institution account that we froze contained entirely the money paid by number 2 high student parents. As for those accounts of yours, by the time the police obtained the victim list and went to the bank, the money had already been transferred away by someone. So it's not that we treat people differently, understand, to put it bluntly. Not a single person among you from other schools discovered that you were being scammed, whereas someone at their school noticed it, which is how the loss was successfully rescued. Can you understand me when I put it this way? Also, number 2 high parents don't thank me either. If you want to thank someone, thank the student who called the police, alright? If that student hadn't spotted the problem, your money probably would have been transferred away too." The police officer glanced at the archive record, then said, "The reporter's name is Lin Yifei, a high school student. The registered victim of the report is Liu Ziyang, a student from class 4 senior year at number 2 high. Strange. Why is Lin Yifei's student registration at number 1 high the police?" Officer drew a sharp breath. A number 1 high student called the police for a number 2 high student. The parents were completely dumbfounded. Several number 1 high parents stood there staring in blank dismay. This isn't right, is it? Then how come we at number 1 high still don't know anything about it? A large group of number 1 high victimized student parents were furious to the extreme and immediately agreed to go to the school together to demand justice. Half an hour later, more than 20 people arrived at the number 1 high school gate. Cursing all the way, they reached the senior year classroom office. Seeing this scene, the teachers were all frightened. At this time, the students were also curiously watching the teacher's office. Seeing this, physics teacher Chinshu Hui hurried forward to pacify them. "Please speak slowly. Who exactly are you looking for? Which class? What police report?" Several parents walked out righteously and asked, "Do you guys know which class Lin Yifei is in?" He clearly knew the Sun Yat-sen exam was a scam, yet he called the police for those number 2 high students, without saying a single word to us number 1 high students. Or now the police station says that the scammed money can only be retrieved for number 2 high. Isn't this screwing people over fair and square? They said Lin Yifei is a student at number 1 high. Who is Lin Yifei's homeroom teacher? Step out. As those words dropped, Chinshu Hui immediately picked up her phone and called Song Wenbo. Soon, homeroom teacher Song Wenbo returned to the office, and seeing this large crowd, he was also stunned. "Who is looking for me?" The parents immediately rushed forward and surrounded Song Wenbo. You're the homeroom teacher of that Lin Yifei, right? You're the homeroom teacher of that Lin Yifei, right?